Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D on the Twitters, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS, breaking down a 7-game slate where the first game on the slate has approximately 47 people inactive already today, with one significant questionable player still pending. So this should be fun. Buckle up. Happy to have you guys with us. What's going on, brother?
Not much. Looking forward to another 7-game slate. Still another just like decent sized slate, and NBA or DraftKings NBA best ball final start today too. So looking forward to that. Maybe I can do better at that than I do at DFS.
Nice. All week again is like 7, 8 games, 6 games.
Good. Love it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know what you weren't looking forward to? That bracket made by Eitan and Eric on best supporting actor.
Absolutely awful bracket. Just
you were almost so offended by that it made you angry.
Yeah, like it takes a lot to actually make me mad, and whoever put that bracket together, like just unbelievably bad. Just the wrong characters from shows, like unbelievably bad bracket.
I mean, I'd go as far to say it's just all the wrong shows.
Well, you don't like sitcoms, so you weren't going to be happy with any of the choices.
Yeah, not a sitcom guy. I honestly haven't seen any of these.
I've seen,
like How I Met Your Mother. I've zero interest in ever watching How I Met Your Mother.
I mean, it's basically a modern Friends.
There you go. Or like Big Bang Theory. Who the hell wants to watch that shit?
That's not even on there.
I know, but it was popular.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I've seen all of these except for Martin, because that ran from when I was like 2 until 7, and I never went back and watched it. But yeah, I've seen all of these, most start to finish.
Friends?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just considered that show was for ladies.
No, I for a while argued it was better than Seinfeld. The most recent time I watched Seinfeld, though, I actually liked Seinfeld, so I've stepped back on that. But
I love Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I don't even know if I'd consider that a sitcom. Like, is that a sitcom?
I don't like Curb as much as I should. Like,
Curb. No. Well, they did.
It just hasn't grown on me. I don't really like Larry David. Like, Seinfeld, it took me like 4 times watching it to finally like it. Eventually, I'll probably like try Curb again, and it'll be like, oh, I actually like it this time. But it's just I haven't gotten into
it. They did, though. That show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, actually got a murder charge dropped, which is pretty crazy. Guy got charged with murder, right? And he said like, his alibi was that he was at the Dodgers game. On Curb episode, the carpool lane. You guys remember the carpool?
Oh yeah. I've heard this.
Okay. Yeah, and they checked like just hey, we'll give it a swing in the or a shot in the dark. We'll give it a shot. They look on the footage, and there he is at the Dodgers game. And that got him off the hook on a murder charge. Pretty amazing stuff. But anyway, happy to have you guys with us. It's going to be a fun one. Do me a quick solid here. We already have over 1,000 people in the house with us. Adam, myself, Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass. You know what I'm going to say. Take a single second. Hit that thumbs up. Just, that's all. Atone for your sins. Absolve yourself of all of that terrible things that you've done, and wash yourselves clean. In all seriousness, it helps us a ton. So if you have the capability to do so, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way. Exactly, Hannah. Atone, you filthy animals. That's all I ask. Get us up to 500 by the end of the show, and we'll be happy. All right, let's get into this one. Glad that you guys can spend the evening with us talking about Indy and Detroit. So this is the first game on the slate, and you had mentioned the very obvious before the show, but something important. You look at this, it's a 7 p.m. tip-off on this game. It's an island game in terms of the only 7 p.m. tip-off that we have, or tip that we have. Indy's a 3.5-point favorite, 226.5 total. Now, granted, they're 3-point favorites on the road without Halliburton, Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell, and maybe Buddy Hield. While on the other side, the Detroit Pistons are without Jaden Ivey, Marvin Bagley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Stewart, Alec Burks, and of course, Hamidou Diallo is probably not coming back this season. So just an insane mess on both sides of this game.
Yeah, ridiculously bad actual NBA game. should be a good DFS game. It kind of sucks that it's the first game of the night because you are just going to have spots locked. And when we get the likely random news that somebody's not playing because it's March 13th later on, you're going to have spots locked. But it is what it is. You have a lot of plays that look really, really good here. You still have Buddy Hield questionable as well on the Indiana side, so it could get even better.
Sports Wiz, I don't know what that is. This is a pretty inexpensive black t-shirt, to be honest with you. I tell you every time, I'm not Jordan Klein. My black t-shirts, we don't throw Benjamins around for those, Jordan. But yeah, let's get into the indie side first. So first up, looking at our ownership projections, the 5 highest owned players on this slate are from this game right here. And all of them right now, following our most recent ownership update, are 38+% owned. Other good plays on this slate, but this is taking up a ton of ownership today. Kicking it off with Indiana, I actually want to start in the front court here and get to a guy like Isaiah Jackson and get your thoughts on him out of the gate, because we've seen him in the past. Not a bad per minute guy. If he's not in any foul trouble, he can put up monster numbers. I mean, look at the last game. He played 26 minutes and absolutely crushed. Where are we at here at $4,600?
Yeah, he looks good. He's averaged 25 minutes per game as a starter this year without Miles Turner. The risks for him are foul trouble, like you said, random Daniel Tice minutes, which, I'm not projecting, but could certainly happen, or just like Jalen Smith playing well off the bench and stealing minutes. But assuming Isaiah Jackson is the starter, he projects around 25 minutes. He's a good point per minute guy, like you said. About 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this season. He is center only on DraftKings, which makes the opportunity cost a little bit higher. On FanDuel, he is a power forward somehow, so he's easier to get there. You are getting a lot more ownership there, coming in 74%. But he looks good one way or the other. Jalen Smith also pulling ownership at 4,700, power forward eligibility and center eligibility on DraftKings. In the most recent ownership update, Jalen Smith's ownership did come down to about 16%. He was at 30% earlier. It creates a really interesting spot because I don't expect Smith and Jackson to play many, if any, minutes alongside each other today. They played about 3 minutes next to each other last game. But one of them is likely to have a big game. I don't really want to play them in the same lineup, though, just because the game, like if you get the game from Isaiah Jackson or from Jalen Smith, where like you have to have them, it's very likely they played more than their projected, 25 minutes or so. And that's going to come at the expense of the other guys. So ideally, I'm not playing them together, but individually, they both have very, very high ceilings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you could say for a lot of this team, there's, when we were talking the other day about the Thunder, I think it's a little bit different in the sense that like they can do anything with that rotation, and you could just pull somebody like Giddey after 15 minutes of bad play, and then the rest of the bench just gets a ton of run. Do you think there's any possibilities like that today, just given how many players are out, especially if somebody like Hield is also out? Do you think we could be looking at an instance where some of these guys on Indy that aren't pulling ownership, even though they're on a skeleton crew of a team today, should be at least considered in tournaments? Because it goes 49%, and I won't name names because we'll get into these in a little further, 48% ownership, 39, 16, down to 4. And then there's nothing behind that. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting because we don't know how this rotation is going to look. We know how it looked last game, but it's Indiana. They can do whatever the hell they want here. And so when you take, I understand the ownership coming into Jackson and Smith. Chris Duarte started last game, played 32 minutes. He's 4,200, shooting guard, small forward. No issues with that. Andrew Nembhard is very good when he plays without TJ McConnell and Tyrese Halliburton. So no issues whatsoever with him at 5K getting a bunch of ownership. But when you think about the rest of these guys, Jordan Nwora coming in at 4,500, O'Shea Brissett coming in at 3,100, Aaron Nesmith 4,800. If they play the minutes they played last game, you're not going to want any of those guys. You got 19 minutes from Brissett, you got 20 from Nwora, you got like 20 from Nesmith, but it's not impossible for Aaron Nesmith to play like 26 or 28 minutes here and be better than people expected. It's not impossible for Brissett to play more or Nwora to play more. James Johnson played like 20, 21 minutes last game. I think it's likely he plays those minutes again, but he doesn't have to. What if he plays 14 minutes or 16 minutes and you're just getting an extra 3 or 4 minutes for Jordan Nwora or for Brissett or for Nesmith? there's paths to them having better games. So I think they should be low owned, but I think they are spots that you can target to try and be a little bit different in tournaments. Similarly with Buddy Hield at 7,100, that's pretty much the correct price tag here. Still played less than 30 minutes last game. He's averaged about 30 minutes per game over his last 10. So I'm not going crazy getting to him, but he's only projected for 4 or 5% ownership. There is still upside there. So I think the clear priorities here are the two centers, Duarte and Nembhard. But if you mix in some of those other guys to be contrarian, I don't mind it here and there.
Yeah. When you're looking at minutes today too, I guess we have to right now project Buddy Hield in. How many do you have any of these guys playing monster minutes? Because even TJ McConnell is out. And we remember last time the backcourt was banged up and Halliburton was out. He wasn't the only one either. I think Duarte was still out at that time. McConnell was playing huge minutes. Do you think we could be in for a dose of that today with some of these guys?
I mean, I didn't go higher than 30 minutes on anybody. I went 30 minutes. Okay. I went 30 minutes on Nembhard, 30 minutes on Duarte. You could certainly see them play a couple more. Nembhard and Duarte both played 32 last game, but I didn't want to get too aggressive with their projections just because it is Indiana. There's ways this game can go to shit. They do still have plenty of bodies. They're just not the normal bodies. If Hield is out, then I think you're seeing more playing time for everybody. But for now, I don't have more than 30 minutes going to anybody. Anything
else for Indy here?
Nope.
All right. Let's go to the Detroit side. So, all right. And these guys only 2 days ago played each other with, skeleton crews in that sense as well. Looking at the Detroit Pistons today, no Bagley, no Stewart, no Bogdanovich, Ivy, everybody, Burks, everybody's out. You have Wiseman, Hayes, Livers. Where do you want to start at here?
Killian Hayes is the starting point for me at 5,700. He's still pretty inexpensive in a good matchup, averages over a fantasy point per minute without Bogdanovich, Ivy, or Cunningham on the floor. And we had talked about it before. We talked about it a lot. He averages over a fantasy point per minute while shooting like 39 or 40%. It's difficult to shoot worse than that. So it gives you an idea of how high the ceiling is when his shot's actually falling. He has a near 40% assist percentage without those guys. So, and played like 37 minutes last game as well. I think expecting 33 to 34 minutes from him makes sense. Makes him look like a very, very good play. We do need a starting lineup here. No Marvin Bagley. So my assumption is that you're getting Hayes, McGruder, Livers, Omarui, and Wiseman in the starting lineup. Going with that assumption, I expect around 28 minutes from Eugene Omarui, which makes him look like a good value at 3,800. I expect McGruder to play 26 minutes or so, makes him look okay at 3,600 or 3,500 rather, with shooting guard small forward eligibility. 6K Wiseman looks pretty good. We saw about 27 minutes 2 games ago. Last game, he played 26 minutes, but he was in foul trouble in that game. He had an abbreviated stint in the first quarter. Then he lost most of his second quarter stint. So I do think there's a path to him playing even more than 27 minutes here. But if you project around 27 minutes, he still looks okay. Jalen Duren should be backing him up at 4,900. If Wiseman gets in foul trouble and you get a couple extra minutes for Duren, he's certainly capable of smashing in this matchup as well. RJ Hampton's likely to give you around 22, 23 minutes off the bench at 3,300. Isaiah Livers is probably playing 36 minutes, but he is up to 5,300 and he's not a good point per minute guy. So there's a lot to like here. I think Hayes is the number one guy for me. If Omarui's starting, he would be the second guy, but Hampton, Magruder, Wiseman, Duren in lineups that don't have Wiseman all look pretty good as well.
I'm not comfortable saying Wiseman would have played all 7 minutes that he, kind of missed in that second after picking up the third foul. But you're right. He missed a potential a lot of minutes.
Yeah. And he also he picked up his second foul in the first quarter earlier than he normally subs out. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not looking at that saying they're going to just play him 32 minutes and play Duren 16, but that actually is kind of the direction they appeared to be heading last
That's time. What I mean. The trajectory of it appeared that way. Played 26 minutes, only played 2 minutes in the second quarter. Right. And he came in after 3 minutes into the quarter. So I mean, maybe the upside are you drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee?
Yeah.
Oh man. What has happened to you? You can't be losing that much in DFS.
I'm in the suburbs. I don't have good coffee places.
No. What do you drink? You go in there, you get some black coffee?
This is a latte, but normally I just make black coffee at home, but I'm not at home.
Okay. Old Duncan. I remember my dad drank Duncan once. We were like an hour from the home, and he started having wild heart palpitations, and I had to drive home.
Yeah,
At a, I was
hasn't started yet.
I was 11.
Are you making this up?
That part,
Yeah.
I was older. I could drive, but all right. Anything? Oh, one other question from this game, probably an important one. We could get news. I mean, we already got the Clarkson news. There's some news that could potentially happen. Rudy Gobert is questionable. A few other spots that are pending right now. Giannis is questionable as well in the late game. Do you think there is any, game theory advantage to going lighter on this game in a bunch of like in some lineups, and just maybe playing that for the, hey, really good, even better value could come up? Or is it just so good in this game that we don't want to get stupid?
What was your question?
So, see, it's that Dunkin' coffee, dude. I told you.
Well, it was somebody in chat was trying to like correct me by pointing out that if I'm in the suburbs, there is good coffee because there's Starbucks, and I was saying that is absolutely not what I meant by good coffee.
Yeah, you meant like, yeah, I got you.
Coffee shops. But
anyway, so do you think from a game theory perspective there is any purpose to, like, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, going light, like real light on this game in some lineups, just because maybe like Giannis gets ruled out or Gobert and just more stuff opens up? Or is the value just too good and that would just be going too far?
No, I think it's a reasonable approach because, like, for example, Eugene Omoruyi right now projected for 38% ownership at 3,800. If Gobert gets ruled out, you immediately want less of this guy and more of Naz Reid for $600 more. So it makes some sense. I think that's a reasonable approach. I'm not planning on doing anything specifically for that to happen. I think I'll still get enough. I think that I'm still going to have enough flexibility that I can get, like, if Gobert is ruled out, I can get to Reid. If Giannis gets ruled out, it opens stuff up, but it doesn't open up any crazy value.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, of the Q tags we're waiting on, I think Naz Reid's the only one where it would be like, oh, I wasn't interested in this guy and now I want him everywhere.
You're right. I don't think there's anything else. Kyrie's questionable and Doncic is out. So
yeah, but even that, I mean, you have like one guy, you don't have guys on that team that can score.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's move on then. Utah and Miami. By the way, appreciate you guys. We're gonna crush 500. We are at 325 already, and it's 520. So putting in work. Good stuff. Let's talk about Utah and Miami. So Utah Jazz down at South Beach, 8-point dogs here. No Clarkson and no Colin Sexton, of course, still ruled out. Now, this clearly isn't one of the best matchups that you're going to find for the Utah Jazz. And that's a lot of that is certainly reflected in the ownership. Is somebody like Lauri Markkanen, even with, Sexton and Clarkson out, and no other real, like, powerful scorers, high usage players to speak of here, is Lauri Markkanen at 3%? Does that entice you at all? Or is this mostly like Horton? THT is 8%, but he's $7,000.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in Utah here, even with Clarkson out. THT obviously burned me last game. He went and scored like 60-something DraftKings points. Still only played 32 minutes, and that's kind of been my issue with him is, can he produce fantasy points? Sure. He's like a 1 to 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy. But even when Clarkson's out, we're seeing him play like 30 to 32 minutes. And he played about as good as he will ever play last game and still got 32 minutes. If he's not going to get like 36, 37 minutes when he's out there doing everything and playing insanely well, it's just hard to think that it's ever really going to happen. And I would just rather let people chase his last game, especially in a tough matchup against Miami at an elevated price tag, than get to him here. So I don't really plan on getting to much of him again at 7K. Markkanen's priced up. Kessler's priced up. Chris Dunn's at 5,500. He played 15 or 16 minutes last game. If you want to gamble on him and hope that he gets back to like 24 minutes, that's fine, but nothing that I'm really excited about. Kelly Olynyk's probably my favorite play here just because he's playing around 30 minutes. He at least has the offensive capabilities to take on a bigger role, even though we haven't really seen it. But in this matchup on this particular slate, I don't anticipate getting to much Utah at all. I think Olynyk's probably the first guy I get to.
You think you get to a lot of Miami here, big home favorites and a pretty good matchup?
I think I get certainly to more Miami than Utah. Good matchup against Utah, reasonable pricing. Tyler Hero, only 6,900, typically giving you 34, 35 minutes, even with Kyle Lowry back. Jimmy Butler at 8,700 looks fine. 8,100 for Bam looks fine. Those three all look pretty appealing. I don't think there's much else. Kyle Lowry played like 30 minutes in regulation off the bench last game. I just have a hard time thinking that that's a normal occurrence. But, and even if it is, it's not like he's a great point per minute guy. Oladipo at 4,200, Love at 4,100. Like there's ways that the rotation can break and these guys end up being really good plays, but it's tough to feel confident in them. But the main three with Hero, Butler, Bam, it looks good for all three of those guys.
Let's keep it moving then. Memphis and Dallas. Desmond Bane on the Memphis side, really the only guy pulling much love at all, because just a lot of these price points are beginning to, like fully adjust to Ja Morant's absence. Bane at 17% right now on DraftKings. You look at him in the games he's played without Ja this year. Usage is up like 2-3%. Assist rates up 3%. Per minute production at 1.18 in the games he's played with Ja, 1.19 in the games that he's played without Ja Morant. Like I said, usage does come up. Assist rate comes up a little bit. Do you still feel comfortable getting there at a mid 8K price point today?
Comfortable is not the word that I would go with, but I like him in tournaments. The ownership did come up a bit to 16%. The good thing for Bane, you get the increased usage without Morant. You're also getting him running point with the second unit, so you get more assist opportunities. He hasn't been great recently. I think this is kind of a sneaky good matchup here because we know Dallas is terrible defensively, but they're also typically the slowest paced team in the league. They should be playing at a faster pace without Luka, though. Whether Kyrie is in or out, they should be playing faster at least. So I think it's likely that you get more of like an average pace Dallas team that is still awful defensively. The pricing is pretty much correct, but I still like the ceiling that Bane gives you. I like the ceiling Jaren Jackson gives you because in addition to seeing increased usage without Morant, he's now the backup center too. He's playing every minute that Xavier Tillman's not on the floor. He should give you around 32 minutes here. He's got a really high ceiling at 9% ownership. Tyus Jones at 7,300, giving you 33 to 34 minutes over a fantasy point per minute, not pulling much ownership. Like I understand why these guys are low owned, but I think they're a really appealing team in tournament lineups to just grab one of these guys as a way to differentiate because it is a good spot against Dallas. You do get plenty of ceiling from all of these main pieces. So I like Memphis in tournaments, but they're not guys that you're expecting to build around individually.
Sure. And the price point is going to pull ownership down on everybody too,
right.
Like you're saying. Bane, what do we have him at right now? 16, but then Jackson sub 10%. Tyus Jones at 8%. Nobody's really getting much here at all.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I was saying Brooks pulling 6.
Yeah. Yeah. Brooks not getting much whatsoever. 12.8% optimal. Positive leverage in the boom bust tool. I get it. Not priorities, but guys that you would slip in a little bit, just given that that price point is so high. It's pulling it down a lot. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, even in large field tournaments, if you wanted to even dig into the bench a little bit, Santi Aldama's averaged 23 minutes per game in the games without Brandon Clark and Steven Adams. Luke Kennard can give you low 20s minutes at 3,100. Shooting guard, small forward. Obviously you need him to get hot from 3, but if he does, those minutes should be there. So, they're adding them to the list as far as value goes, as far as guys where I'm not looking to go into this slate just like jamming in Santi Aldama or Luke Kennard. But if you're playing these large field, top heavy tournaments, I think these are decent ways to differentiate your lineups.
Anything else for Memphis?
Nope.
All right. So then what do we make? Let's assume that Kyrie Irving is in today. And we already know that Luka Doncic is out. What do we make of Kyrie Irving in this spot today? He's only pulling 7% ownership right now in a spot where you've got the game total at 224.5. Like you said, should be overall a pretty slow paced game. Dallas, a slower paced team than Memphis. So technically a bit of a pace up spot. But if Irving is in, and let's say, I don't know, Giannis sits, so then your high price guys without Luka as well would be Tatum, Curry against Phoenix, Tatum against Houston. A lot of pretty cheap options already. Devin Booker without Durant against Golden State. He's at 10-1, and that dude's been red hot. Lauri Markkanen, who you said you're not all that fond of, and then you got Sabonis I can throw into the mix as well. But no Embiid, no Jokic, possibly no Jokic, no Jokic, possibly no Giannis, no Doncic. A lot of the top tier, like 11K plus guys just aren't on this slate at all.
Yeah, the thing that would make it still difficult to prioritize Kyrie is just that you have very good guard plays for less money. Whether you're talking Trae Young for quite a bit less, Tyler Hero for quite a bit less, but like you also have Killian Hayes taking a bunch of ownership. You have Andrew Nembhard taking a bunch of ownership, deservedly so. So all of that stuff is still going to cut into the Kyrie ownership. Also, not a great matchup against Memphis, but he is currently the third highest projected DraftKings point play on the slate. He has Trae Young and Sabonis very close to him in terms of projection, and they are less expensive. Devin Booker as well, but the ceiling is certainly there. So I get why he's low owned, but sort of like I was saying with the Memphis side, I would still like that lack of ownership in tournaments because the ceiling is so high. He's played 12 games this year without Kevin Durant or Luka Doncic. He's averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute, 37.8 minutes per game. Assuming he plays and is not limited, I would expect him to play 37, 38 minutes here. The ceiling is very, very high. It's just you can't look at him and say like, oh, I'm just slamming in Kyrie unless you're willing to then say, well, I'm not playing Trae Young. I'm not playing Devin Booker. I'm not playing Sabonis. I'm not playing Fox because you're going to have to give something up to do it. And that's why the ownership is as low as it is.
Right. I get that. I mean, and the only other reason I asked too is because when I talked about Irving possibly being out and you're like, hey, there's nobody on this team that can score. Like, I know they have Tim Hardaway. Christian Wood's a perfectly fine scorer off the bench. I mean, we know that.
He doesn't play enough minutes.
I know. Right. That's what I was going to say. So, like, it's very possible also that Irving just takes on a Herculean role today against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Right. And so, like, Tim Hardaway is going to have the second scorer role or primary scorer role, depending on Irving's status. His salary has come up a little bit, but, he can still get hot. You're just paying the correct price, for his projection. Yeah. But as a result, he's not getting a ton of ownership. Kleba at 3,500 played 26 minutes last game. He's somebody that you expect to play big minutes. He fits what Dallas needs to do. Josh and I, had that conversation this morning where, once again, Christian Wood just didn't play the minutes that people think he should play. But for Dallas, you need somebody that can rim protect and knock down threes. And Kleba's better at both of those things. He's a better defender. He's a better three-point shooter. So he gets the minutes. He's not a great fantasy producer, though. So still not somebody that, you're that excited to get to. If Kyrie is out, you're likely getting a bunch of minutes from Jaden Hardy at 4K, which would give you another value guard that you can play. It would open up more production for Josh Green, but he's already up to 4,800. So that's going to be a tough spot to get to no matter what. So it's a team that one way or the other, I don't think I'm super interested in. But if Kyrie is out, it certainly makes Hardaway look better. It makes Jaden Hardy look better.
All right. No priorities then if Irving is in outside of just like the ceiling on a guy like Irving and possibly Tim Hardaway as well, even though his price is adjusted?
Yeah, if Irving's in, I think it's, clearly if you get to Kyrie, that's great. If you need a mid-range forward, Hardaway's fine. If you need cheap forwards, Kleba or Bullock are fine, but there's nothing that I'm actively looking to get to.
All right, Minnesota and Atlanta, 3 down, 4 to go. Got through some interesting ones already here. Before we do though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. You see it up top on the banner. First to house, win 21x. You hit all 5 of your picks in your lineups, and I've been throwing these cards out on Twitter. We've been having a good time. You're 21xing. Now, you don't have to. You can go 2, 3, 4, or 5. You could 3x, 5x, 11x, 21x. And when I tell you that these props are softer than other books, it's a fact, okay? First of all, you have the tools over at Stokastic.com where you don't need X ROI or anything like this. There's no juice. You're just taking the over or the under on these props. All you need is the expected win rate. But we're also factoring in everything else. Like, hey, this prop is minus 135 everywhere else. No House Advantage. It's just over or under. There's no actual odds on any of these. So you're hammering those, right? It's minus 135 to the over, 15.5 points for whoever. You're hammering the over. You're making lineups with props, 1 through 5 if you want, 21 extra entry fee. Boom. Plus, fun to sweat this stuff together. Unlike DFS, where you're hoping somebody doesn't tie you, playing against the house here. Everyone's in this with each other. You're looking to win some money. And yeah, when you do hit the 4 or the 5 plays and you're 11 or 21xing, you're riding that for a long time, even if you have some rough days. They also have the pick 'em too, where you're playing against the field. You want to talk about the softest props ever. Go look at No House Advantage pick 'em. softest, like sometimes they're 10 off on PRA props, point rebound assist props, than DraftKings or FanDuel is. It's insane. And the ones you like the most go at the top of the lineup. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the fewest. You play against the field. There's massive overlay on those every night. So check it out, whether it's Pick'em or versus the house. Lots of money to be made over there. Lots of fun to be had as well. And you're getting $100 first match deposit bonus when you use the link in the description or the one Jordan can throw in the chat. So if you put $100 in, your account balance is going to say 200. You put 50 in, it's going to say 100. Even if you only have 10 to spare, still going to say 20. Check it out. No House Advantage, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Big money to be won over there, and you should get some of it. All right, let's talk about Minnesota and Atlanta. I think we both already know here that the play is pretty simple in the event that we have no Rudy Gobert, right? Pretty simple. You go and you look at Naz Reid, $4,400. He's been a plug and play every time Rudy Gobert has been absent this season. Let's assume Rudy Gobert is active in this game, Adam. They're 5.5-point dogs, 244.5-point total here. What do we do with the Timberwolves if Rudy Gobert is active? Then we can work our way back to this.
Yeah, so if Gobert is active, Anthony Edwards looks good regardless of Gobert's status. Shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings, only 9,200, giving you 36 or 37 minutes. He's just going to look like a good option. Kyle Anderson is a perfectly fine last guy in. He should give you 32, 33 minutes. He's playing with the second unit, which is nice. Just does everything well when he's on the floor. He's pulling about 15% ownership. Gobert himself is a really interesting tournament play if he's in. His salary on DraftKings went from $7K last slate to $7,900 today. We had seen him up around this $8K price tag recently, and it was really difficult because on one hand, his per minute production has been much better with Mike Conley than it was with D'Angelo Russell. That's not surprising at all, given their familiarity, given Conley's willingness to actually work Rudy Gobert into the offense. And we've seen Gobert's usage rate jump about 3 points with Conley, which is a big deal for somebody as efficient as Gobert. But the problem was that recently, even in competitive games, you were just getting like 29 to 31 minutes from Gobert. But last game, you got about 37 minutes in regulation, 42 including overtime. There's no guarantee that he gets those minutes again today, but it at least opens the door for him, to know that he can play those minutes, that they are still willing to do that. And so it makes me a little bit more willing to take shots on him in tournaments if he is in, even at this elevated price tag, but clearly not the same level of priority he would be if he were still 7K.
And if Rudy Gobert sits, and Naz Reid's not expensive at all. He's $4,400. So 244.5 total game. That essentially just speaks for itself. You know what to do there. On FanDuel, Naz Reid's at 5,200, center only eligible. Where do you think he would become as far as value priorities amongst the rest of the slate, given that Detroit and Indy game?
He would probably, like, if Gobert got ruled out right now, Naz Reid's the highest owned player on the slate.
Oh, Irving is out.
Oh, good.
Do you think? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're saying Naz Reid highest player on the slate if he would.
If Gobert were to get ruled out right now, and you're going into lock, knowing that Naz Reid is starting at center, he's the highest owned player on the slate.
Christian Wood is now questionable.
I mean, he's basically questionable anyway.
I know. Yeah.
I would actually kind of prefer Christian Wood not to play because I can't give him enough minutes for him to get into my lineups. But if he just gets minutes, he's in the winning tournament lineup. So, like, I kind of would rather him just not play so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. It's amazing, too, that his price point is still where it is.
He was like 54. He was like 5,400 last slate. People played him a good amount, and then he played like 16 minutes, but his price tag went up, I guess, because of the ownership.
God, if you take him out of the lineup today with Irving out, I mean, you're looking at Reggie Bullock and Powell and Kleba.
I mean, you're looking at that anyway.
Josh Green. No, I know, but I'm saying now you don't even have Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, they did have Kyrie last game, and Christian Wood played 15 minutes.
I know. No, I'm. Oh, sorry. I wasn't talking about Christian Wood. I was just talking about how ugly this team looks in general and an ability to score points.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that was kind of last slate. I didn't know what they were going to do with Christian Wood because Kleba was back, and clearly Kleba's ahead of Wood in the rotation. But it was like without Kyrie, without Luka, they have nobody on this team that can play offense outside of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Christian Wood, and then sort of, I guess, Jaden Hardy. And so it was like, are they going to just give Christian Wood more minutes because they actually need offense now? And they still didn't. But it does scare me, like, not having him, because if today they were just like, all right, we're going to bite the bullet on defense and play Christian Wood and he plays 26 minutes, then you're kind of screwed if you don't have him probably. But I don't see any way to expect that to happen. I expect that you're just getting a bunch of Tim Hardaway Jr., a bunch of Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Reggie Bullock, and hoping that they score enough points to win.
Let's just give 20 minutes to JaVale McGee and let him do his thing.
Is he even active?
Probably not. He hasn't played in a month, but
he's not on the injury report, so I guess he is available.
You know what happens when JaVale McGee plays, though.
Oh, yeah. If Wood's out, he's probably in the rotation today.
15 minutes from JaVale McGee at 3,000 might get you there, honestly. Wouldn't be the craziest thing. All right. Anybody else from Minnesota you want to get to?
No. So, I mean, we talked about Reed. Like, Taurean Prince is cheap, probably playing around 20 minutes. Nothing exciting there, but large field tournaments, if you get there, it's like Luke Kennard or Santi Aldama. Alexander Walker at 3,700, kind of the same thing, but no, nothing else that really looks appealing.
All right. How about on the other side with Atlanta today? You mentioned Trae Young being in the same mix as far as like cheaper than Kyrie Irving guards go. He's still sub 10K, 9,900. DeJounte Murray, 8,600. There's not a lot here today as far as jumping off the page type value or great options, but I mean, Trae Young in a game with a near 245 total against a team that, you know, is already hamstrung by injuries looks kind of decent to me.
I love the Hawks in tournaments today. I don't totally understand this ownership. Trae Young getting around 29%, that's fine. The one negative that I will point out with Trae Young is that he's averaging about 33 minutes per game since Quinn Snyder took over in those 7 games. You're seeing DeJounte Murray still play huge minutes, but you haven't seen those 35 to 37 minute games from Trae Young. That's not to say you never will. They're certainly still possible, but the playing time is a little bit concerning. That being said, though, he's still only 9,400. He's in a very high scoring game. I still like Trae Young. The rest of this team, though, I don't really get why they're not more popular. DeJounte Murray, $8,300. Sure, that's not the best price tag, but this guy's averaging 37 minutes per game since Quinn Snyder took over. He's still playing huge minutes, and he's in this what should be a really high-scoring game. You have John Collins at 4,500. He's closed, I believe, 3 games in a row. That's not to say he's going to close this game, but you have the potential for 28, 29 minutes from a $4,500 John Collins in a game with a 244.5 total at 5% owned. Sign me up for some of that. Clint Capella at 6,200. We saw Atlanta play a small closing lineup last time out. They certainly could do that here again. So you don't have a guaranteed 48-minute split between Capella and Okongwu. But from an upside standpoint, you can still get 30 minutes from Capella. You know, it happens often enough that it's on the table. Similarly, Okongwu at 3,900. If you get a 22, 23-minute game from him, he ends up looking like a good value. DeAndre Hunter's averaging 34 minutes per game under Quinn Snyder. He's only 4,800, pulling 10% ownership. Bogdanovich is likely to play around 24 minutes here at no ownership and 4,400. I understand that like there's a lot of risk in the non-Trae Young pieces, but there's a lot of upside as well. And there's like no ownership coming in here.
All right. Would you say this is your favorite tournament team right now, given the ownership?
Yes.
Okay. Sounded like it.
Yeah. I mean, Detroit and Indiana is its own thing. Like, I'm going to get more of that game. But, like, in terms of contrarian teams, like, I like Memphis at low ownership. But with Memphis, the whole team is sort of like DeJounte Murray, where you're looking at it and saying, like, all right, the price is probably right, but they can still go off. Memphis doesn't really have these John Collins type pieces or Clint Capella type pieces or Bogdanovich type pieces where it's like they're cheap. And if they get the favorable rotation, they're almost by definition beating their salary.
They have the highest implied total on the slate as well. 125 today for the Atlanta Hawks. Monster total. Get to a couple super chats here. Some of you who are members here on the channel, we appreciate you. You got that sweet avatar or that sweet what is it? Avatar, Jordan? It's a badge. That's right. The badges. I got a badge. Josh of Los Angeles, free super chat. Member of almost 2 years for Josh. Just saying I love you. We love you too, man. Bobby B's, 4-month using that free super chat. I know you answered this, but we can answer it quickly. Would you run Smith and Jackson in the same lineup?
I'm not planning on it. It's not the worst thing. Like, they probably play a couple minutes alongside each other. But the reason that I'm not planning on it is, for one, the true like must-have Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith game at $4,600 or $4,700 probably comes from one of them playing more than 25 or 26 minutes, which is likely to cut into the other one. The other thing is that there's plenty of other options. Like once I have Isaiah Jackson in a lineup, or I have Jalen Smith in a lineup, why wouldn't I rather just have John Collins or Sadiq Bey or Dylan Brooks or anybody, these other guys at this price point that still have a similar range of outcomes. So I'm not planning on playing them together. I don't think it's the worst idea. If somebody does that and wins, I'm not going to look at it like, oh, wow, like they're idiots. How did they do that? But for me personally, I'm not planning on doing it. I think that I can make better lineups or lineups I like more by not doing so.
Did Josh say he hoped you had long COVID?
Yes, when I had COVID. I don't remember why, but he definitely said that he hoped I got long COVID.
Oh, nice guy. That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Also, he said he was cooking. I was like, I wonder what he's cooking. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. I'm with Jacob on this. That's not cooking, dude. I mean, that's just making food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like that's something I could make, which means It's not cooking.
I mean, it's one step above microwaving or like air frying.
Right.
I'm sure he's got this sweet type of grilled cheese that he makes, and he'll tell me why I'm wrong. But
right, it's like I don't consider grilling cooking either. Like
you can be real good at
you can be really good at it. You can also be really bad at it. But like, I still feel weird if someone's like, "Oh, can you cook?" And it's like, I think it's like, well, I throw a steak.
That's
on
true.
the grill.
That's true. Yeah, like you don't grill burgers and be like, "Yeah, I cook all right."
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, and I'm sure there's like gourmet grilled cheese. I know there's gourmet grilled cheese out there, but generally speaking, you're just throwing something on the pan. That's all. A little butter, a little bread, and taking it home. All right, let's keep it moving here. Super chat 2 from O'Reilly. Oh, the infamous Riley Cooper. Who gets minutes for Boston in a blowout? Well, whether this was intentional or not, that's great super chat etiquette because we're on to the Celtics and Houston Rockets. Boston 12 so we will get to that. Boston 12.5 point favorites on the road, 231.5 point total. As it stands right now, is your favorite high priced player Jason Tatum?
I think it's pretty close between like Tatum. What are we calling high price to? Because like,
what's that?
Like if you're talking Tatum, Curry, Sabonis, Booker, it's probably Tatum. I would expect to have like more Trae Young probably.
Okay. Yeah,
Tatum is certainly up there as far as top guys.
I guess there really aren't that many at all now that Irving's out as well, guys, and that's that similar price range to Jason Tatum. But we can start it off with him here. I mean, it's clearly a fantastic matchup, but I'd be remiss to ignore the fact that while we don't like to talk about blowouts, 12.5 point road favorite doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah, there's obviously blowout risk here. But again, if this is a blowout in the way that Boston doesn't play the entire fourth quarter, you probably got a big game from these guys anyway. Yep. So I'm not, overly concerned about that. And if this game does go down to the wire, if it is competitive, then you're likely, getting big games just based on playing time. The one thing that does stand out to me here is, like, I like Jason Tatum for sure at, 10-9. I have no issue with that. I don't really know why he's getting more than double the ownership of Jaylen Brown, who's $1,900 less expensive. Jaylen Brown's still got a massive ceiling at $9K, shooting guard, small forward eligible. I like him quite a bit in tournaments if he's going to be sub 10% owned.
Okay. How do you approach the rest of Boston today then, just looking at all of these price points? White 61, Jaylen Brown 9,100. Everybody's pulling a little bit of ownership, even behind Jason Tatum. Like White's pretty popular right now as well.
White's like 7%.
Oh, then we must have updated because hold on.
Oh wait, we just got a new update, but
okay, he was 19. He was at 19%. That's why I mentioned.
No, I hadn't seen that. He was only 7 in the last one. We just got a new one.
Okay.
He's at 9% now. Brown's at 11 or 12%. I still like that, but we're getting closer to where it probably should be. Tatum down to 21%. So Tatum and Brown still look good. Smart, White, Horford, Brogdon, all 4 of those guys are just sort of in that, like, if you get there, that's fine range. If this game's competitive, you're likely getting enough minutes from all of them for them to look good. Last time out, we saw 25 minutes from Brogdon, 33 from Horford, 36 from White, 36 from Smart. Like, if you get that type of game here at these price tags, they do look pretty good. But they're more so, tournament contrarian plays, whereas you actually feel good about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
King of all trades said 2,400 people lurking and 305 likes. SMH, hit that like button and atone for your sins. Now, we do have over 2,400 people watching, but hit that refresh there, King of all trades. We're only 21 from 500. We're going to smash that well before. So we'll show a little bit of love here. We're almost there. We will get there by the time I'm done talking here. So thank you. But anybody else for Boston, or should we flip to Houston?
Nothing else. So, I mean, to touch on that super chat, there's nothing.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah, there's nobody blowout wise that I think gets enough minutes to matter. If you wanted, for whatever reason, to take that approach, Sam Hauser is probably the guy. Like, he's the only guy in the rotation that is probably also closing in garbage time. Everybody else, you're saying like, oh, I hope I get 12 minutes from these guys at the end of the game, which, just isn't good enough. So if you wanted to take that approach, Hauser's the one guy that I think plays actual rotation minutes and then also plays in garbage time.
Only injury right now for Houston is Alperen Şengün, and he's probable. So you already have a bad matchup to begin with. You have a 109 implied total, 12.5 point home dogs. That isn't to say, like you had mentioned, that this game can't stay competitive. The last game with a massive spread where the road team was a huge favorite was Denver and the Spurs ended up beating them handily. So Boston, a little different team, in my opinion.
So that was also a really weird spread, given that Denver is absolute dog shit on the road, and the Spurs were healthy for the first time in months.
Yeah, but what wasn't that double digits? I thought?
Yeah, it was like 12. It was 12 and a half. Yeah. But it was like it's unusual for me to look at a line and like have an immediate opinion. But that one, like I still didn't bet it because I don't know what I'm doing there. But like I looked at it and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then the Spurs won, and I was like, oh, I should have bet.
Oh, dude, you should have taken Spurs money line.
Yeah, obviously. Why didn't I?
Because that's obviously what you were thinking, right? Like,
right, yeah. When I looked and said, wow, 12 or 12 and a half seems high, what I was actually thinking was Spurs win outright. Yeah.
Right. I might take the alt line Spurs -6, actually. Right. Yeah. What do you want to do with Houston?
Not a lot. They are in a tough spot. They are healthier now that you have Kevin Porter Jr. back. If you want to say that any of Porter, Şengün, Green, KJ Martin, Tari Eason have ceilings, Jabari Smith, like any of those 6 guys have upside at their prices. The reason I don't think I'm getting too much Houston, though, is that we've already talked about Atlanta that I really like and that isn't very popular. Memphis that I think looks good and isn't very popular. There's already contrarian spots that I like getting to that don't involve taking Houston against Boston. But Porter, Şengün, Green, Martin, Eason, Smith, Smith's been playing better. You're getting some minutes at the 5. Tari Eason only played 21 minutes last game, but typically he's playing around 26, 27. If there's any foul trouble for Şengün, Green, Martin, Smith, Şengün, Martin, Smith, probably not Green, but possibly Green. Eason is stepping into more minutes, but he's also priced up a bit. Şengün, we saw 33 minutes last game. So I do think it's important to keep in mind that there's sort of been like a narrative around Şengün that Houston's tanking and it's costing Şengün minutes, when really it's just Houston gets blown out a lot and Şengün gets in foul trouble a decent amount. And between those couple of things, you just get a lot of games where he doesn't play full minutes. But in competitive games, he typically is playing into the mid-30s still, so that ceiling is still there. But it's just a really, really difficult team to get to.
All right. We got 2 games to go. And then coming up after this, you got Live Before Lock. You got Greg and Neil taking you up and through lock. Little No House Advantage post-lock show till 7:30. Also, probably a good time to let you know that if you guys are looking to get in on all these tools, the ownership we referenced, for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, the boom bust tool, the projections, right? The top stack tool for all of these other sports. It's not just basketball. We got every tool you can imagine for MMA, PGA, hell, NASCAR, XFL, college sports. You got March Madness right around the corner, NHL, MLB's coming up, all that stuff. 50% off. Let's 50% off. Whether you want a week of NBA or a month, or you want a week of everything or a month of everything, 50% off the top of everything, including the premium Discord, including the brand new lineup generator that's been winning people a lot of money. All of that good stuff is available for 50% off. The link is in the description. Jordan, throw that link in the chat. Maybe you're ahead of me and you already did. Are you ahead of me? Yeah. He's ahead of me. The link's already in chat. Take a look, man. Peruse it. Window shop. See if you like something. All of the tools. let's say you've been rocking the Stokastic avatar, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever it is you play, and you're like, fuck, haven't gotten the top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more yet, so I can get that free month of Stokastic plus Platinum, right? $120 value. You're going, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to keep trying. I got the avatar. Once I hit that, I'll get inducted in the Hall of Fame segment that's coming up right after this and right before live, before log. I'll get there. I'm rocking the avatar, right? I'm tweeting my wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame. If you're not there yet, but maybe you want the tools, maybe you think it'll help you. It will. 50% off everything, whatever it is for the month or the week. Or if you just were like, hey, I want to try the lineup generator out, 50% off your first week of that. It's less than $4.50 for the week. You can export all those lineups to CSV straight onto the site. Beautiful thing. You can swap players out. You can lock players. You can do tournament lineups, cash lineups, however you want to play it. And you can save all the ones you want, discard the ones you don't want. We're already giving you all the best lineups. Now you just find the ones you like the most. That's $4.48 a week if you're looking to go a little bit less and maybe you're busy and don't have time to put all the work in every single day. So link to both of them in the chat and the description. Got any questions? My DMs are open over on Twitter. If you're curious on what's best for you, I'm happy to help you out. All right, let's get through these last 2 games. Toss this over to live before lock. Phoenix Suns today. Same thing as always. No Durant, no Landry Shamet. What do you want to do at the top here with like Ayton, Paul, Devin? Let's start with Devin Booker, as a matter of fact, against the Warriors today, pulling 11% at 10,100.
Yeah, I like these main Phoenix pieces quite a bit. Should be a competitive game, should be a high-scoring game. Kind of interesting that Booker is getting like half the ownership of Jason Tatum. You know, I think Tatum projects better. I get why he's more popular, but I don't think he's a 2-to-1 favorite against Booker. So makes Booker interesting. Clearly playing without Kevin Durant again. He's been playing really well. Played 38.5 minutes last game. You saw huge playing time in a competitive game against the Kings. Now you have another Western Conference, contender, likely to be a competitive game. You have a 4.5 point spread here. 235.5 total is the second or third highest on the slate. So I like getting to Booker. I like getting to Chris Paul, who played 37.5 minutes in that game. 38.5 minutes in that game. DeAndre Ayton played 37 minutes. He is only 7,500. So he's he's somebody that's making it difficult to get to Rudy Gobert, for example, when he's less expensive. You get a nice bounce back in usage for him now that Durant's gone. But that salary had dropped a little bit because of Durant being there, and it hasn't fully recovered. So all 3 of those guys look really good. Then if you get to the other 2 starters, Josh Okogie, Torrey Craig, both reasonable value plays. You're not excited about any of them. Josh Okogie as a starter with Booker and Paul this year, averaging about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute, and he's doing that on 47.5% three-point shooting. So that's not exactly what you want to see because he's shooting way better than you can expect him to shoot and still not being that good of a fantasy producer. But the minutes are there. The price tag's reasonable. You can still try and get lucky on him at 6% owned. Same for Torrey Craig. Played 27 or 28 minutes last game. 3,500. Nothing special there, but just a really cheap price tag for somebody playing that many minutes. Outside of those main 5 guys, I don't think there's much here. But I will add that Terrence Ross has been the first guy off the bench consistently the last couple of games for Phoenix. Shooting guard, small forward, 3,700, no ownership. Not an exciting play, but still in that Luke Kennard bucket where you can get 22 to 24 minutes from him, especially if he plays well. And he's just not getting any ownership despite seemingly carving out a pretty nice role in Phoenix for the moment.
All right. Kevin Schmidt, welcome to Team Stokastic, brother. Nice to have you aboard. Badge looks solid. Dirty damn. I dream of being in the Stokastic Hall of Fame. You'll get there. When you do, it's going to feel great. And of course, I love unsolicited endorsements like this from Steve, just saying, I really like the lineup generator. Yeah, dude, it's an awesome tool. And it's cheap as shit, too. All right, on the other side of this one, Golden State, you got the Warriors, Stephen Curry being another one of those guys priced up today. High-priced options against Phoenix. 6% coming in on Stephen Curry. Do you think that's where it should be today on Steph coming in, a lot lower than a lot of these other guys?
It's probably a little bit low, but it definitely makes it interesting in tournaments. This is another one of those teams where there's nobody that I expect to get a lot of. There's nobody that I'm looking at it and saying like, wow, I really think the field is wrong for not having more of these guys.
Yeah.
But 6% ownership coming into Steph Curry. Anybody familiar with anything understands that there's a very high ceiling on Steph Curry. Klay Thompson's salary has, just quietly dropped like 10% down to 7,600, and he's pulling 5% ownership. shooting guard, small forward, it's Klay Thompson. Like he can go out there and have a monster game. Draymond does a last piece in at 6,300, no issues there. So those three guys, I think, are all just interesting contrarian plays. There are ways you can be different in tournament lineups without giving up ceiling. You're giving up a bit in the way of median projection, but all of these guys are completely capable of just going nuts on any given slate, particularly Curry and Klay. So they're up there, with those Memphis guys, with some of those Atlanta guys, where I think they just make really good contrarian pieces. On the late slate, keep an eye on the starting lineup. We have Jonathan Kuminga questionable. We got Kevon Looney starting last game. He had a big game, played a bunch of minutes. Don't know if he'll start if Kuminga's back. I assume he will, but you got 31 minutes in regulation from him last game as a starter. Going to be difficult to get there one way or the other on the main slate, but on the night slate, certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Kevon Looney shot miserably and still had a huge game. Ready to wrap this up with Milwaukee and Sacramento?
Yep.
All right, so Giannis is questionable. Joe Ingles is out, by the way. 244.5 total. So there's two very, very just extremely conducive to fantasy atmospheres you're getting from these games. Milwaukee 2-point favorites, opened as a pickup, at least this morning when I saw it. If Giannis is active, let's tackle it like this. If Giannis is active at some of these salaries, because he's missed a trio of games, is there anything that we can even remotely get to comfortably right now with the salaries all juiced through the roof on guys like Middleton and Holiday?
I don't really think so. Like if Giannis is in, clearly you can get to Giannis. He's 11-9 though.
Right.
So even that is tough to get to. It's a great matchup against Sacramento. Fast team that plays no defense. But you just have such a gap between Giannis and everything else on the slate in terms of salary. He's $1,000 more expensive than Jason Tatum on DraftKings. And Tatum is, the second most expensive guy, more expensive than everybody else. So by, at least several $100s. So it's just tough to get there. And there's a strong mid-range today too. It's not like you have value, which is great. You can get to Giannis if you want to, but a lot of times I think you're just going to get, like you have Giannis, you're going to get to a point where it's like, oh, I could probably make a stronger lineup by moving down a couple $1,000s from Giannis and upgrading something else. But clearly, at low ownership against the Kings, if you get to Giannis, that's fine. But if he's back, it becomes so difficult to get to an $8,200 Middleton or an $8,900 Drew. Lopez and Portis both north of $7K now. It just becomes really difficult to get to any of that if Giannis is back.
Yeah, we crushed 600 likes. I mean, putting in work today. Everyone's in a good mood. 2,600, 35 people watching right now. You want to wrap this up with the Kings? Toss it over to Live Before Lot?
I'll add that if Giannis is out, it makes Middleton, Drew, Lopez, Portis all look marginally better. They still, I don't think, move into like priority territory like they have been on recent slates because the salaries have adjusted, but certainly much more playable if Giannis is out.
Okay. Domantas Sabonis. So you do have some center options here that are pretty popular. I mean, Isaiah Jackson specifically, Omari, tough one for me to pronounce, power forward eligibility. Naz Reid, even if Rudy's out, has power forward eligibility. Jalen Smith. So just looking at this right now, a lot of the top center options on the slate or potential top center options outside of Jackson, they do have power forward eligibility. So I'm not shocked to see that Sabonis is getting around 13% today.
No, me neither. And it is a reasonable price tag at 9,800. Not the best matchup in terms of Milwaukee being solid defensively, but the Kings are such a good offense. This game has, 244.5 total, tied with Minnesota for the highest on the slate. We have seen the ownership come down a bit as well. When Josh and I did the show this morning, I think you had Fox and Sabonis both up around like 18 to 22% owned. And my first thought was that seemed a little bit high, but now it has come down, to the low teens, which makes a lot of sense. As far as, center goes, like you said, a lot of power forward eligible guys. And the mid-range isn't that strong. You have Gobert, you have Bam Adebayo, you have DeAndre Ayton. Those guys all look good. Capella, if you want to take some shots in tournaments. But it's not the deepest mid-range at center, so that makes it a little bit easier to get to Sabonis as well. Fox looks fine at 8,800, should play a lot of minutes, and it's also a little bit cheaper price tag than we've had on him recently. So those are the two guys pulling the most ownership, and I don't have any issue with it.
Okay. Anybody else for Sacramento?
Any of the other, main six guys, Herter, Murray, Barnes, Monk, I think they're all perfectly fine, like last guy in tournament pieces. If things break your way, it's not hard to see how they exceed their salaries, but they also don't look different than, a lot of other options on the slate.
Well, hey, good luck tonight, guys. We're going to toss this one over to Live Before Lock. Shout out to Jordan Klein. Shout out to all of you hanging out. Don't go anywhere. Stokastic call. We're gonna run back the Hall of Fame from last week, Jordan, and we'll record tomorrow. Yeah, some good ones from last week, though. We can run that back. Greg Ehrenberg, Neil Orfield taking you up and through luck coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Hey, follow Adam at Ship My Money, DFS, me at Lafayette_D. We'll see you back here for the next one. Peace. Yo, it's that time of week again where we're inducting you fine people into the Stokastic Hall of Fame and giving away some monthly subscriptions to everything on our site, all of our tools right here, just by rocking the Stokastic avatar, finishing top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweeting your wins to @Stokastic Hall of Fame. You're getting the free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You're getting inducted right here. All you got to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar. Rock that avatar wherever it is you play. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame, and we're in business. Just like Ryan did. How do I go about getting that free membership? Thanks for this content, guys. Congrats, man. $4,800 win right there in the fadeaway. Love to see that. Third place. And then, how about Arnold? He was on here twice last week. He's on here again this week with a much bigger win than both of those. In the 60K mini max, boom. Thanks, guys. First place in the mini max. $3,600 going to Arnold. Congrats, man. Keep that heater going. And Mitchell King was on here last week as well. Hit another one. Moved up to the $1 tournament this time. See, you just keep moving up, man. Then you get those free tools, right? You get the free month, and then you can use them wherever it is you play, no matter the stakes. $2,000 in the end one. Congrats, Mitchell. Keep that going. An ugly 8 game. We've seen him on here plenty of times. Thanks to the great content, Stokastic NBA, and timely news from, yes, the news guy, DFS. Even I can win a free month of Stokastic Platinum. Congrats, dude. And how about Gary Encarnacion? Missed first place by just 1 rebound. I'll take it. $400, second place in the NBA shop. Followed up by Samuel Johnson. Had a nice evening. Again, the mini max. And remember, doesn't matter if you're playing $1 entry, quarter, nickel, $20 entry, as long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. That is literally all that matters. And you're rocking the Stokastic avatar. Make sure to update it too. Get that new fresh one that you see up here. Samuel Johnson, $283 in the mini max, first place. And then you have Paco, 4OU, $250. My dedication to following the Stokastic Live Before Lock shows pays off. Not a monster score, but not a bad takedown for a quarter investment. There it is. Again, $250 on a quarter. Congrats, man. And Skimmer to wrap this one up. Thanks to Greg Ehrenberg and Neil Orfield for the LBL last-minute advice for third place. Appreciate you. LFG, 4K daily dollar, third place, $125. Congrats to all of you. Remember, download the avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. Hit us up at Stokastic HOF and get that free month. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let us do the bragging for you, and let's keep winning.
Okay, that's good to know.
What's happening, everybody, and welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock. As you come in, here's what you guys should be doing. You should be liking the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel, not just because it helps us out, but because Jordan Klein is in a terrific mood today. And daylight savings is not pitch dark out right now because of the time change. It is kind of nice for me. I'm not doing the show in front of dark windows. I actually got some sunlight coming in. It's cool. I like it. We're also sponsored by No House Advantage today. We're going to talk about more about them as we go along and a whole lot of news. The NBA injury report is loaded with key players today. Probably going to be the case for the next month or so as the season winds down. And even more important than all of that, I'm joined by the flannel god himself, Neil Orfield. Neil, how was your weekend?
It was great. It was very calm weekend. Didn't have any big plans all weekend. Just kind of, we went out for dinner, hung out at home for the most part. But Greg, I want to start with my hottest of hot takes. I think I'm probably going to get canceled for saying this. I enjoy daylight savings time, like both ways. I enjoy it in the fall. I enjoy it in the spring. I like it. I know everybody else hates it. I'm sorry. I don't have kids. That's part of it. I think people with kids, like, you have a reason to hate it. And I know that, like, it should probably be canceled because, like, people, like doctors, perform worse after daylight savings time, that kind of stuff. People perform worse at their jobs. But for me, it's just great. I love the extra hour of sunlight in the spring. I love the extra hour of sleep in the fall. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, so for me, I don't really give a shit. It makes no difference to me. I have a life with limited obligations. I show up, I do a bunch of work, I do content. Other than that, what's going on outside, what hours that is, doesn't really impact me all that much. I'm a lone wolf here. I operate all by my lonesome, but I get it. There's pushback. Some people have kids that wake them up early in the morning. I have nobody. I sit here by myself all the time. I don't even leave this office. People wonder what I do when the show's end. Nothing. I sit in this same seat and I wait for the next show to start. That's it. That's my life. But it also means I'm always prepared to talk about NBA and NBA Live before Lock 4 today. And we've got some news that broke not too long ago with Kyrie Irving, but to read off the other players that are on the injury report for you guys. Giannis Antetokounmpo is questionable. Rudy Gobert is questionable. Buddy Hield was questionable, was just upgraded to in as we were starting the show. And that could be really important with a bunch of other players from the Pacers rolled out. I'm frankly really surprised Buddy Hield is playing because with Turner out, with Halliburton out, with McConnell, I just assumed they would sit Hield as well, but that is not the case. And then Christian Wood still questionable, Jonathan Kuminga questionable, Bogdan Bogdanovic questionable. But where I want to start, Neil, is by talking about Kyrie Irving. That's the most fresh news that we have coming in right here. Kyrie Irving is not going to be playing today. Christian Wood is officially questionable. So what's looking like good value right now from the Dallas Mavericks, considering the news that we currently have?
Yeah. So when I wrote up my article earlier, the top 8 value plays on the entire slate were from that Indiana Detroit game. Now, Jaden Hardy and McKinley Wright have surpassed all of those plays just in terms of our value score. Looking at Fantasy Cruncher using our projections, Jaden Hardy looks fantastic. We've also got him projected for 74% ownership, but at 4,000, we've got him projected for nearly 35 fantasy points. Looks like a slam dunk play. McKinley Wright, I'm less excited about, although he's only getting 8% ownership. I'm less excited about just because we only have projected to play 20 minutes, and apparently he's a pretty good point per minute guy. We've got him projected for 22.5 fantasy points, but I feel like there's more volatility in that than there is for Jaden Hardy. So I like Jaden Hardy quite a bit. McKinley Wright looks like we've only got him projected for 8% ownership, so that's kind of interesting. And then after that, it's going to kind of depend on whether Christian Wood plays, whether we have more value there.
Yeah, and I assume that we're going to. I assume we're going to get rotation at least in the backcourt, fairly similar to what happened the other day. And I'll pull up that game log really quick because Saturday night we saw the Dallas Mavericks play without Kyrie Irving. But one thing that was a little different about that game is that there was an active Christian Wood that's still up in the air. Wood didn't play as many minutes as I thought he was going to in that spot, but Hardy played a ridiculously massive role. 37.5 minutes for Hardy in that start. If he's even close to that kind of playing time today, which I don't really have a good reason to think it wouldn't be, he's absolutely a very, very strong value option. As for some of the other minutes that were notable in that game, Josh Green played 33.5. We got 36.5 out of Tim Hardaway Jr. Reggie Bullock played 32 minutes. And then the front court minutes, this is where stuff was really spread out. 15.5 for Christian Wood, 26 for Maxi Kleber, only 19 for Dwight Powell in a start. So even with some of the injuries to Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving being out, we still didn't really see the Dallas Mavericks lean on Christian Wood as I thought was potentially going to be the case on Saturday. But for sure, considering the minutes we got the other day, Jaden Hardy has to be a really, really strong consideration as a top value play of the entire slate. Is there anything, I know you mentioned McKinley right there, but are there any other lower owned pieces from Dallas that jump out to you?
Yeah, Maxi Kleber looks okay. Decent value there, 3,500. We've got him projected for 19 fantasy points. Not especially great there. As far as low owned plays, let me take a look a little bit closer because Tim Hardaway Jr. looking like chalk. Hang on one second. Yeah, so we've got Josh Green looks okay. 14% ownership, not like extremely low owned, but he's kind of interesting. Reggie Bullock, we've got playing 32.5 minutes. Only have him at 20 fantasy points, but I think that if Christian Wood is out, he's going to look pretty interesting as a pretty good offensive player when they're lacking in offensive players. I think nobody else really stands out to me as like incredible value here. Obviously, things are going to open up a little bit more if Christian Wood is out, but currently it's mostly Jaden Hardy, some McKinley Wright, some Tim Hardaway Jr. Interest, and then Maxi Kleber a little bit interest because he's 8% owned. Again, he's not like there's a lot of volatility, I think, in that projection, but at 8% ownership, I think he's a fine play. Reggie Bullock at 4% ownership, probably the most interested in me of the super low owned guys, because in 32.5 minutes on a team that is lacking for offense, I could see Reggie Bullock getting some shots up at 4% owned. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and like you said, things could potentially change here if Christian Wood is going to be ruled out, but definitely a good shout out by you. And we'll be keeping an eye on that, not just for the next 47 minutes, but also in the 30-minute post-lock show where Neil and I are going to be covering No House Advantage, any kind of late scratches that happen, any sort of unexpected lineup news. I think a lot of that is going to happen, not just today, but going forward. So we'll be sticking around for 30 minutes post-lock as per usual. And let's get to some of these super chats that we had. One of them outstanding because Loughran 14 asked a question during the last show and Lofty forgot to answer. Very Eric of him to just skip over questions and not want to answer them, but it's okay because I'm here to answer the question. Loughran 14, if Houston keeps it close, name 3 that kept it close for DK purposes. Well, let me go pull up to see if I have any exposure to players from Houston right now, which not anything significant, but I mean, pretty clearly it'd be Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Alperen Şengün. Now, I would assume if this is a competitive game, at least one of them probably has a big night relative to what their ownership is and relative to what their price point is. But with that said, there's nobody right now on the Rockets projected for double-digit ownership, and there's nobody that I'm prioritizing. Like you can make a case for getting to some exposure to Jalen Green or Kevin Porter Jr. or Şengün, but I'm not really playing much of Houston. How about for yourself to answer Loughran's question?
Yeah, same exact answer. Those are the 3 that are most likely putting up big scores if Houston's able to keep it close. I'll add in Jabari Smith. I mean, back-to-back games, 58 and then 43.5 fantasy points the last 2 games. Obviously, we don't want to be box score chasing here, especially because the field might be a little. We've only got Jabari Smith projected for 0.5% ownership, so we're not anticipating the field box score chasing here, but it wouldn't surprise me if he gets a little bit more. So maybe he's a 4th that could potentially be part of the reason they keep it close. But yeah, the primary options would be the 3 you mentioned: Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün. Other than those 3, I think, yeah, Tari Eason is playable, maybe Jabari Smith playable, but no priorities for me at all, especially in this matchup.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. Like, to me, I understand what he's asking in the question. It just, to me, isn't super DFS relevant. Like, even if they keep it close, there's going to be a lot of value on the slate and nothing that I really think I'm going to end up being prioritizing there. And the next super chat we have here comes from H. That's his name, just H, 1 letter. He's like Shaq, but even more famous. So he's able to abbreviate his name even more. H. Gregathy. What's the mysterious object on your desk? Gold bar? First, this has been back here forever. It's an incense thing.
But Greg, we can see it now because now you have sunlight in your room.
Oh, I guess that's true. So this is incense, which is different from incest. The way it works is you just put this this candlestick in it, and then you light it, and it makes the room smell really good. So yeah, I've got
also like wards off any evil spirits, right?
These things in here, you take one out, you light it on fire, you put it in there, and the whole room smells good for like a day. That's how it works. And once again, incense, different from incest. They work completely different. But that H, to answer your question, that is what the gold box is behind me. Has really nobody noticed that before? It's been there forever.
I haven't noticed it.
Really?
I think it really might be the lighting. You just have more light in your room.
Look at that. And here I thought daylight savings time wasn't going to impact me. Everything has changed. Everything has changed.
Everything's coming up, Greg.
Also, if anybody has questions for us in Discord, at me will be answering those. I'm going to double check to make sure that we didn't get any questions that came in other than I know T. Lee asked us if we could do position by position closer to lock, which of course we will. We'll go through the players that we have the most exposure to. And also a very poignant point in here from Swaggy Pete. He wants me to bring out the glasses for post lock.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we could do that. We could do that for sure.
But they're also sunglasses. Shouldn't they be pre-lock because it's light out right now? Never mind.
It's a good point. You do need sunglasses when it gets a little bit brighter outside, and they would help. They would definitely help protect my eyes. But no, not right now. That's post lock. That's a treat for the people who decide to stick around for the extra 30 minutes afterwards. But working our way through some more of these NBA injuries, and we've got Giannis listed as questionable for tonight, Neil. Obviously, that's going to be big news relevant to the slate. And we haven't seen Giannis play for a little bit. If he does end up playing, are you going to be comfortable getting to him in large field tournaments? He's probably not going to be picking up very much ownership, especially if the news doesn't break until later on in the night. The last time we saw Giannis play now was, let me pull up his game log here. We've not seen Giannis play since March 5th. So it's been a little bit over a week. It's a great matchup tonight against the Kings. If Giannis is ruled in after lock, because I assume we're not getting the news before lock, are you going to try to get yourself to Giannis exposure?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love Giannis if he is ruled in, especially if he's ruled in post lock. The hard thing is going to be, I think the hard thing we have to decide is, do we want to save space for Giannis ahead of time? Like, it's such a big risk because if Giannis is out, like, you're not fine. I guess you could pivot to Sabonis in that game. I guess we do have, that pay up option, but it's hard to really, you can't find anybody else on the slate who's 11,900. So if you just leave one spot open and Giannis gets ruled out, you're going to be, leaving some salary on the table there. So that's something you need to consider. Am I willing to leave salary on the table? Is this a spot where you might want to do something that I know people on these shows often recommend? And I think this might be a case where it is worth it to say, if you play Giannis, have at least one other player from the game so that you can pivot to a 2v2 there if Giannis is ultimately ruled out. This might be one of those cases where I think it is worth doing that. But yeah, I think Giannis is going to be a fantastic play if he ends up being ruled in, because most people aren't going to be taking the risk. We've only got him projected for 8% ownership. This is a killer matchup against Sacramento. And Giannis is obviously the best point per dollar play, or not best point per dollar, the best projected play on the entire slate. So yeah, I would definitely love getting to some Giannis if he is ultimately ruled in, and especially if it is prior to some of the. I guess there is that Phoenix Golden State game at the same time too, so that's kind of nice. We do have some pivot options, but yeah, I would love Giannis. How do you feel about it?
I would like to get to him. The other thing I'm going to add as well is, I know that the Bucks are cautious with Giannis, especially at this time of the year, especially when he's coming back from injuries. But this was a hand injury.
Şengün
this is not
ruled out.
another. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but Şengün was just ruled out.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk on that in a second. That was certainly unexpected. By the way, we got that question from, well, we're at 14. We're talking about we're not going to like you. Well, now maybe we might like Houston guys. So we'll hit on that in a second, but I just want to wrap up the Giannis talk by saying this. Giannis was out with a hand injury. He's missed the last few games. This isn't a knee injury like before when he had knee soreness. This isn't, a quad injury. It's not it's not any kind of lower body injury. That makes it more likely for somebody to come back and just play the regular minutes right out of the gate. So I think that if he's rolled in, there's a pretty good chance that we end up seeing Giannis play his full allotment of minutes. But let's talk about the Houston Rockets now, because Şengün has been ruled out. That is not something that we were expecting at all. He wasn't even listed as probable on the injury report. Wasn't anything that was a consideration for us. What is your immediate reaction to Şengün being ruled out?
I don't think that it makes anybody on Houston an immediate priority for me necessarily. I guess maybe Tari Eason might become more of a priority, but now he's up to 5,400. I don't think that anybody becomes a full-on priority for Houston. Maybe I'm trying to think who else would be like the obvious, like just become a smash. But I don't think there's anybody who's going to become like Naz Reid if Gobert is ultimately ruled out. I don't think we have any of those plays from Houston. I'll see once our projections update. Maybe I'm misreading what the Houston rotation will be with Şengün out. Maybe there is somebody who gets a big bump, but it's at least a minor bump to Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green. These guys become definitely more interesting without Şengün in the lineup. Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, I would imagine picks up some minutes with Şengün out. He's already pretty interesting. He's a great or good fantasy point per minute guy, but also he's 5,400 now. So the price isn't like, if he were 4,400, I have a ton of interest in Tari Eason. Now it's like he's probably priced about right. Yeah. Do you have anybody in mind that you think becomes a huge priority here?
I'm not going to say anybody becomes a huge priority. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup does look like for the Houston Rockets, though, because of the man you mentioned before. I think there's a chance that Jabari Smith starts at center and Tari Eason moves into the starting lineup. I think that is something they could do. They could start Usman Garuba at center. Garuba, has he made any starts this year? He made one start, but way, way long ago. October 22nd, Garuba started, played 25 minutes, scored 26.5 fantasy points. So if he was to start, he would certainly be serviceable as a punt option. But just based on how some of the rotations have run as of late, I do think there's a pretty good chance they just go like, hey, let's go with our small ball lineup, especially against a team like the Celtics, because I like to think of it this way. If you're a team that's a massive underdog, and not even to say that Houston's trying to win this game, they clearly don't give a shit about wins and losses at this point of the season. But if you're trying to be competitive with a team when you're a massive, massive underdog, you want to up the variance. And to me, that is by shooting 3-pointers. So I think it would make most sense for OKC to play small ball here. And if that is what they do, then it would be Jabari Smith starting at center, Tari Eason starting alongside him in the front court. And then you just have this really fun, young, athletic team out on the court. Certainly not going to win the game, but I do think that would make Tari Eason somebody that I play for DFS purposes, if that is the starting lineup they go with.
Yeah, absolutely. If he's starting, he becomes pretty interesting. What about Boban? I mean, if Boban starts, I will just say people are talking about him, chat. If Boban starts, yeah, I'm interested for sure. If Boban is just a beast in terms of fantasy points per minute, I would love him if he starts. I think it's unlikely, but yeah, if he got the start for sure, I would want to play some Boban.
Yeah, so let me bring up his points per minute, but I can't remember the last time we had a Boban slate. Boban slates used to be the greatest thing ever.
I used to love them.
Yeah, we're a few years removed from Boban slates, but here's the reason why they're so great. Boban this year is playing 4.5 minutes per game and averaging 6 fantasy points. He's just this guy, you put him on the court for like 20 minutes and then you expect like over 30 fantasy points because of how good of a points per minute fantasy producer he is. I don't think he's going to start. I think Garuba is more likely to start because he's been ahead of Boban in the rotation. They also got Frank Kaminsky they could potentially go to. So we'll see what that starting lineup looks like. But my guess is going to be Tari Eason starts. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that is the likeliest scenario. And then he definitely becomes pretty interesting at 5,400.
And looking at some of the on-off court numbers, the player that actually benefits the most with Şengün off the court this year is Jabari Smith, because he sees a big uptick in his rebound rate. He sees a little bit of extra shots as well. But considering where he's priced now, I still don't think that's enough for me to really want to get to him.
Yeah, he's kind of at the max price for Jabari Smith. I mean, he has had, as I said, back-to-back great games, but we really don't want to be chasing those. I will say he played 47 minutes in that game against Indiana, and then 36 last game. I assume that game was that was a double overtime game, right?
The game Jabari Smith
versus Indiana. Am I
pulling that up?
I might be misremembering this. Oh, that was only on the 9th. Okay, it's not the game that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so last game he played 36 minutes. The game he played 47 minutes on the 9th. Let's see, what was the scenario in that game? That game it did go to overtime, not double overtime. That's still an insane amount of minutes. Think about it. That means he played 42 in regulation.
Overtime. Yeah, that's nuts.
That is a lot of playing time. I wonder if I assume he would play in garbage time if the game was to be not competitive.
I would think so.
So with that in mind, are you going? I'm updating stuff right now. I still don't think I'm going to really get to Jabari Smith. Is he somebody you think you're going to end up playing now?
So again, I'm only playing 21 lineups tonight, as I have been doing. I don't know that he's not a priority. I'll say that. I might get him in a couple lineups ultimately. I'll see how our projections change with him if he becomes more interesting as a projection play. But I don't anticipate that he's going to be a priority for me in this matchup.
All right, so I am updating stuff right now, and I'm just assuming Tari Eason plays, starts, and ends up playing 30 minutes. And with that being the case, I actually got to him in a pretty good chunk of lineups. He is coming in about 40% of my lineups if I assume he starts and plays 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got him project for, around 30 fantasy points at 5,400?
Little north of 30.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see if he starts when we get those updated lineups. I do have some exposure to Giannis right now, we were talking about a second ago. And now we're all caught up on that news. Let me check to make sure if we got any super chats or anything in the interim. And by the way, we're sponsored today by No House Advantage. If you guys haven't signed up at NHA yet, use the link we have below because it's going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Or if a link is difficult for you, if you don't want to hassle with a link, you just sign up using the promo code Greg. Super easy to spell, GREG. And that will also get you access to the promo that we have over at No House Advantage. $100 bonus on your first deposit. But in addition to that, they have props you can play against the house. So if you're in a state that doesn't have legal sports betting, pretty good chance you can play over at No House Advantage. And we've got tools to cover all of that over at Stokastic.com. And Neil and I are going to be talking about some of those later on in the night here. All right, here we got some super chats. Ace of Spade asking his normal question. He wants to know who my favorite options are for DK tiers. Now, as I was saying the other day, it's been brought to my attention that when we got the super chat the other day and I read out my favorite players, I ended up giving out the nut lineup and it caused a massive tie for first place in DK tiers. Tiers becoming more popular on the show. People like asking the questions, and hey, we came through the other day. So to answer Ace of Spades question for tier 1, I have it as Giannis right now. And I think he's a really, really interesting tiers play. He's risky because if he doesn't play, obviously you're kind of screwed. But if he's in, I just don't think people are going to play him all that much. And since the start time also, what you're going to do, if you have him in your lineup and he's ruled out, you swap to Steph Curry because they have games that start at the same time. For now, though, Giannis is my favorite option for tier 1. Tier 2 is Domantas Sabonis. Tier 3, Trae Young. Tier 4, very, very tight. I got a whole bunch of guys here that I got similar exposure to when I ran lineups. But my favorite guy overall in tier 4, who else but my arch nemesis, Jimmy Butler, came up most frequently for me in tier 4. Tier 5, Chris Paul. Tier 6, Tyler Hero. So that's what covers the 6 tiers. I hope that helps you build out your lineups there, Ace of Spade. The next question, Mr. CoolCam97, top 3 favorite pay-up options on FanDuel. So 3 pay-up options that we think Mr. CoolCam here should be targeting over on FanDuel. By the way, we did just get an ownership update less than a minute ago. But in terms of pay-up options, for tournaments, once again, Giannis. I think Giannis is such a strong tournament pay-up option today. Only project for 12% ownership on FanDuel. I think he's a great way to be contrarian. If you're looking to go with the more popular pay-up options, a lot of ownership going to Jason Tatum today, projected to be in about a quarter of the field's lineups, and the same for your guy, Anthony Edwards, Neil. He's projected to be about a third of the field's lineup. So I think those are the 2 safest pay-ups if you're looking at cash games, and also viable for tournaments. But if you're looking to get off the board with somebody who's projected to be really contrarian right now, a little bit of risk involved if he doesn't play, but I'm going to be rostering him today, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Love it. Yeah.
The next question here is from Melissa Harvey. Melissa wants to know, hey guys, who are the must-haves for DK cash? So the players right now that I would say you absolutely must have. I think Jaden Hardy is by far number 1. He's projected for 67% ownership on DraftKings. So he's going to be really popular. He's going to be a really good points per dollar play no matter where you look. To me, I think he's the best points per dollar play on the slate by a mile. Jaden Hardy, I think you want to play him in cash games. Consider him a lock. Isaiah Jackson, another one. He was great the other day. I think he's locked into that starting spot with Miles Turner out again. Tim Hardaway Jr. would be another one for me, and I think Tatum's the safest pay-up option for cash. So those 4, I'd say Hardy, Jackson, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Jason Tatum. Is there anybody else you're getting a ton of exposure to, Neil, that you think Melissa absolutely needs to have in a cash game lineup today?
I would say Chris Duarte, also a must play. He's both shooting guard and small forward eligible, just 4,200, projected for 40% ownership in tournaments. And I think that he's a versatile enough player that he's likely to, be out on the court a good amount tonight. So I think Chris Duarte at 4,200 is a must have in cash too.
All right. Makes a whole lot of sense. And is definitely one of the guard/wing players that I'm getting a lot of exposure to as of right now, Chris Duarte. And I know he's largely sucked this year. He's decent during his rookie year, but there's so many players out for the Pacers that he is somebody that I think makes sense. And that is a good call by you. The next question is from Jonathan Bennett. Top GPP at each position for DK, and then best low-owned GPP plays. So I could read off right now the player I have the most exposure to at each position, and then we could find some lower-owned GPP plays. Do you have some dummy lineups built out, Neil, or you have kind of a rough idea of who you'd be rostering?
I'm going to run a set right now. Okay. I'm working in a Fantasy Cruncher as we speak. So yes, I will.
All right. And this will also help address T. Lee's question from before in the Discord. We want us to go position by position. At point guard, I get the most exposure to Jaden Hardy. Shooting guard is also Jaden Hardy. Another guard I like a good amount is Trae Young. Small forward, Anthony Edwards, I get a good amount of, as well as Tari Eason at power forward. Brought him before. He's small forward and power forward option. Talked about him in terms of how I like him now that I think he's going to start without Şengün out there for the Houston Rockets. By the way, also another potential that we see Tari Eason play garbage time. That's something else that he's done at times this year. That could be another path for him to find success. And then at center, I'm still playing a lot of Isaiah Jackson. For yourself, Neil, when you ran lineups, who did you get the most exposure position by position? And then we'll address the other part of the question and find some contrarian tournament plays.
Yeah, so at point guard, it's Jaden Hardy, Killian Hayes, Trae Young, huge drop off. Shooting guard, it's Chris Duarte, Jaden Hardy, Anthony Edwards, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then huge drop off. Small forward, Chris Duarte, Anthony Edwards, Tim Hardaway Jr., huge drop off. Then to Tari Eason is the fourth there. Power forward, Omarui. I can't even say it. Omarui. Yeah, Omarui.
I'm fairly sure it's Omarui, but only because I've been saying it and nobody's corrected me. Typically, if I fuck up somebody's name, Chad called me a moron for 3 days. So considering that nobody has corrected me means one of two things. Number one, I've either gotten it right, or number two, I'm wrong and not a single person knows how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems fairly likely too in this case. But yeah, it's Omarui number one, Giannis number two, Jalen Smith number three at power forward. So power forward is the one position that even Omarui is 38% for me right now. Giannis 23%. It's more spread out than other positions. Center, Isaiah Jackson, Omarui, and Giannis.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any issues with any of that. So Giannis right now, I kind of tempered my exposure to him a little bit just because I was scared to go crazy heavy with him. I'm overweight to the field, but are you going like really heavy with Giannis right now? Or at least did he pop up a lot?
So I only have 23% Giannis right now. I did not do anything to his projection. I just left his projection exactly as it was to see what would happen. And 23% feels about right to me. I think that's about my the level of risk that I'm willing to take on Giannis tonight.
Okay. So we're fairly similar then in terms of what we have. And the other thing also, if more value opens up, right? If one or two more players get ruled out, I probably end up getting to even more Giannis because it'll just be easier to fit him in that kind of scenario. But right. if you had the salary to spend up for one player, like let's say that there's we didn't have to worry about the price tags and you just had to pick one player to be the highest scoring on the slate. Would you go Giannis or would you go with somebody else? Because I would go Giannis.
If you plays as Giannis, yeah. I mean, Giannis is our highest projected player on the entire slate by 4 fantasy points. So if he plays, it's definitely Giannis for me too.
Yeah. So I hope that people don't end up going with Giannis because I do have more. Jason Tatum is projected right now for about 4x the ownership of Giannis. And I right now have about 4x of Giannis relative to Tatum. Tatum's a much safer play, but I think most of us would agree that on any given slate, if there were not any concerns at all surrounding Giannis, considering the injury and whatnot, I think Giannis would be more popular than Tatum in the scenario more often than not. Going up against the Kings, really tight spread, really high total. So I hope he plays. I hope that ends up working in our favor. We got a super chat from Jay. And we just got the starting lineup for the Pacers as well. It is Nembhard, Duarte, Hield, Nesmith, and Isaiah Jackson once again starting at center. Jay wants to know for Showdown, the Warriors versus the Suns. I'll run some lineups for you, and then I will get back to you on your question, Jay. But we will hit back on that in a couple of minutes for sure. And then also for Jonathan Bennett's for low-owned GPP plays, number one for me is Giannis. Do you have anybody else you'd add to the mix as a low-owned GPP play that you are gravitating towards or that Fantasy Cruncher's gravitating towards as you build out the lineups?
Yeah, so I agree with you. Giannis is definitely number one for me as well. Just looking through my line, I mean, so it's not really low owned. Ant, I am getting to well above the 18% the field is, and I literally didn't do anything. So in this case, it's not me putting my thumb on the scale. In this case, it's just the projections are giving me a ton of Ant. Naz Reid. So Naz Reid could potentially be low owned just because we have so many other value options that people might gravitate toward. Maybe we'll get that Rudy Gobert news before lock. We probably will actually. The game only takes place half an hour after lock, so we'll probably get that news. And if we do get that news, yeah, it's early enough that he won't be low owned. So I'll avoid that one, I guess. Yeah, Giannis is under 10% owned. I'll get a good amount of Giannis. Yeah, Jaylen Brown, 13%. I'm getting above that. Yeah, no real like standout guys who are getting under 10% ownership that I really want other than Giannis currently. I will say John Collins. So I actually haven't adjusted yet. I'm really intrigued by John Collins here. I think that he's the epitome for me right now of just an ownership play. We have John Collins projected for 3% ownership. So on this slate against this Minnesota defense, should be a fast-paced game with the Wolves. John Collins is just 4,500. He's played 28, 29 minutes the past 3 games. That's pretty interesting to me. If you put let me move his minutes projection up to 29. We'd have him at 26 fantasy points projection at 4,500. That's pretty intriguing. So I do have some interest in John Collins as a low owned play that I'll throw out there.
Interesting. I mean, there's a couple slates that you and I have gone after him at the really, really low price, really low ownership. To me, it has to be I can't imagine there's a lower floor than this for John Collins. This has to be the floor. It can only go up from here. So that's the way that I'm approaching this. Starting lineup for the Pistons: Hayes, Magruder, Livers, Amarui, and Wiseman. Yuck. That lineup is absolute dog shit. But
is there a better one they could have put out there?
You could only play the players on your roster. That's one of the rules of the NBA. There's no prime Michael Jordan the Pistons could put in their lineup today, but it's a bad one. It's not a good lineup.
Is this did this change any from what you were anticipating?
I mean, I can't say that I was totally confident in what the Pistons were going to throw out there, considering the players they have available. But not like there's nothing here that makes me think like, oh, this changes everything. Right? This is more or less what I was anticipating. Yeah.
RJ Hampton becomes a little bit riskier since he's not starting, but we weren't expecting him to start.
Let me pull up because I'm not going to be changing anything here from the Pistons. They play in the first game of the slate. Who are the Pistons players that you are getting that you're getting the most exposure to right now?
Hayes, Amarui, and James Wiseman are actually the only three that I got in my most recent crunch. I also have interest in RJ Hampton, even though he's not starting. You could play some Magruder. So I'd say those are the five that I have interest in. Hayes, Omarui, Wiseman, I'd say are the three that I'm most interested in. And then after that, it is just Magruder and who else did I just? RJ Hampton, you could play. Jalen Duren, you could play. I don't think I'm playing Duren with Wiseman at all. Do you think are you going to set a rule there, or do you think you're going to play any Duren?
It's going to be hard just because he's center only.
Right.
And he's not start. He's really.
I'm not going to force it.
He's infinitely better than James Wiseman, in my opinion. But the Pistons have been committed to playing Wiseman at center and starting him. And Duren, the last couple of games, has only played 21 minutes in each of them. He's a great pointsman and fantasy producer, but considering what his playing time's been the last couple of games, it's hard for me to project him extremely well.
Yeah, that's fair.
For me, in terms of Pistons, I got to Hayes 1, Amarui 2, Magruder 3, and then James Wiseman 4. That's how I come in ranking the Pistons relative to the exposure that I have to them today. And we've got ownership updates. Let's see. Not quite yet. I'm curious to see where Tari Eason ends up coming in, because before we got that super chat, Eason's also one of my favorite contrarian tournament plays, assuming that he ends up being contrarian, but I'm not exactly sure what that ownership is going to end up being, because as of right now, we don't have him projected really for any ownership on FanDuel or DraftKings, but I like Eason on both sites. And to answer Jay's super chat, where he'd asked me for Warriors and Suns showdown, I built out lineups. These were the results. The captain I got the most exposure to is Devin Booker. The utility players that end up getting the most of Chris Paul, Steph Curry, DeAndre Ayton, Torrey Craig, and Josh Okogie for salary savings. So Jay, I hope that helps you build out your showdown lineups. And we have some more super chats to answer. First from Sir Ruin House of Roundhead. He's got a comment here. This is for the #1 XFL fan that I know. How about them defenders? Undefeated, won good money in XFL this week, and hope to continue that with NBA. Once again, not a question, more of a comment, but the defenders seem to be doing well, Neil. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I really, really dislike Greg Williams, so I can't cheer for the defenders because he is their defensive coordinator. But I like their head coach. I like, it's a fun team. So they got the beer snake thing going on. They got the lemons thing. In general, I'm okay with the defenders being good, except for that I can't stand Greg Williams.
And but this is how you know that we're Greg Williams, the leader of Bountygate, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
That guy finds a lot of jobs.
He does. He's good at finding jobs. He's probably good at his job, to be honest. Just don't like him personally.
The counter to that is that he always has to look for new jobs.
True. Yeah, because might be a character issue.
He does seem to get fired a lot. So we've got some more super chats here. And by the way, also, if you guys want access to any of the tools that we have over at Stokastic.com, you could sign up for any of our packages using the link below, and it's going to get you 50% off. So if you want to get access to our player projections, ownership projections, sign for an NBA package. If you want to just have lineups that are going to be built for you, and they're going to be plus EV lineups, you're somebody who doesn't have the time to grind out the slates and do all the research and watch the shows, we've got our NBA lineup generator package that you could sign up for less than $5 using the code that we have below. And also, by the way, the NBA lineup generator, it is included in the package, in our NBA package. So it's not a one or the other thing. If you sign up for the NBA package, you get the NBA lineup generator, and then we have the NBA lineup generator package that's available itself for cheap, if that is what you're interested in. Some more super chats here. And I was going to say, this is what makes you know for sure that this is an end of the NBA regular season slate, because this is a question we got from Shane Daly. Amarui over Agbaji? Serious question, LOL. Yes, if you were telling me that we were going to be debating Omarui versus Agbaji 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have believed it. But here's where we're at. I prefer Amarui.
Yeah, for sure. Agbaji, I mean, we have Agbaji projected for nearly 30 minutes and under 17 fantasy points. That's how bad of a fantasy producer is. And he's playing against Miami. Yeah, it's definitely Omarui for me.
The next super chat we have, it is another one from Mr. CoolCam97. He wants to know who the 5 must plays we would consider for a FanDuel GPP. So these are the players that I'm going to consider the best overall plays on FanDuel by different measures. The chalk plays, I think Isaiah Jackson is good chalk. I think Jaden Hardy is good chalk. I think Killian Hayes is good chalk. I think that if you want to be safe with your spend up option, Anthony Edwards is a good one. But if you want to be a little bit more risky, if you want to be more contrarian in tournaments, and one of my favorite tournament plays of the day that Neil and I have both been talking about, this applies to FanDuel and DraftKings, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Love getting to Giannis. Hope he ends up playing. And if not, one thing that's nice, the last game this late, it's not on an island though. We've got another game too. We've got the Phoenix Golden State game with other high-end options to be able to pivot to a little bit. So I am okay with playing a good amount of Giannis, and I've gotten more comfortable with it as Neil and I have talked about it as we've gone on as well. So Giannis is somebody who I'm going to be playing a good amount of. Fingers crossed that he plays, but even if he doesn't, I think we have the flexibility to swap off him a little bit.
Yeah.
Next super
like
chat. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I pulled up FanDuel, so I was just gonna say our top leverage play, and he's a great leverage play on both sides. Jalen Smith, we haven't talked about him a ton, but he is on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Just looks like a fantastic leverage play for us.
I've got a good amount of exposure to him. I still have more of Isaiah Jackson, but I do have 30% of Jalen Smith.
Yeah. Did you set a rule at most one of those two?
No, because they could share the court together, and they're both so cheap that it's reasonable to see a path where they both end up having good games relative to their salaries.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I did set the rule in part because I'm only playing 21 lineups. If I were playing 150, I would have probably done a negative correlation boost in Fantasy Cruncher, but I set the rule. I get it. It's just because of all the other value, I think that I'm going to keep the rule, but I think it, either way, I think there's an argument for both sides.
And the next super chat we have is from Jay Bravo, Johnny Bravo himself, 99. I'm on about 80% Hayes on FanDuel. Who should he pivot to? Is there a pivot play off of Killian Hayes over on FanDuel? Anybody that you see right now in the boom bust tool that is priced around the same $6,400 on FanDuel that you would consider to be a lower owned option off of Killian Hayes, or is the answer here just play Killian Hayes?
What is he, point guard only on FanDuel? What's his
Yeah, he's point guard only at 6,400. All
right, 1 second. I mean, the answer could just be play Killian Hayes. I'm playing a lot of Killian Hayes. I think he makes a lot of sense, but I'm also not playing on FanDuel. You say he's 6,400 on FanDuel?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little bit more expensive than DraftKings. Yeah, we don't have any like fantastic plays around him, like 6,400 or cheaper. We have Derek White, but he looks like he's overowned, 19% ownership, 13% chance to be an optimal. Yeah, I don't really see anybody who stands out to me as somebody I really want to play at point guard in place of Killian Hayes. It's probably in that price range, unless you're pivoting your 2v2 or something. I think you just go with Killian Hayes. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Killian Hayes for me too, and maybe I will regret saying this, but I'm getting a bunch of exposure to Hayes. I know he's popular. There have been times for sure this year that I've played a chalky Killian Hayes and it has not gone well. But there's so many players out for the Pistons that I think that he should have a lot of opportunity today. And he might even end up playing garbage time if the game ends up being one-sided because they have so few options. And don't forget Killian Hayes is a young player himself and could just be somebody that Detroit wants to get extra playing time for. Because if you look at the other players that Detroit has available today, it's not even like they're in the unenviable position, Neil, of being terrible, not being fun to watch, and not really having many prospects for the future at the same time either. Because even if you look at some of the available players and who they've been playing lately, it's not like they have young guys that they're giving shots to. Like they've been running Alec Burks out there at times, or just older guys that don't really move. They're giving Corey Joseph minutes right now, right? Like Corey Joseph is like. So to me, if the game was to be a one-sided game against Indiana, which by the way, I don't think is going to be the case because Indiana's got a bunch of guys out. The Pacers are favored by 4 points, but both these teams are skeleton crews. I think Hayes plays in a close game, and I think he's live to play even if this game is a blowout to be in garbage time because, once again, the end of their bench is like RJ Hampton, who's not a prospect anymore. Corey Joseph, super old and fat at this point in his career. So Killian Hayes just might play in garbage time. I like him today. I'm playing the chalk there, and if it goes poorly, I have nobody to blame but myself, and I'll feel like an idiot about it. But I'm playing a bunch of Killian Hayes. It seems like you are as well, Neil.
Yeah, I'm probably I currently have 100% Killian Hayes. I don't know that I'm going to end up sticking with that. I'm only playing on DraftKings too. But yeah, I think that he's a great play.
Now let's dive into Discord and see what it is that we have in there as far as questions go. And we've got some in here right here. Iron Mike V. So Iron Mike 5, the first 4 already taken. Issue playing with Booker and the Cliff together. So Cliff, meaning Cliff Paul, twin brother of Chris Paul, who's also just Chris Paul. So the issue I have with it is that I am not playing a ton of either of them. That's just the main issue I have. Individually, I think they're both decent looking, but neither of them are massively high priority for me. The reason I don't get to them together is just for that reason. I think there's better ways to go about spending up for your salary today. If you're playing one or the other, I slightly prefer Devin Booker, but he's also fairly expensive at this point. Booker,
Christian Wood ruled out.
Christian Wood ruled out. So we'll hit on that in a second. But first, as far as Chris Paul and Devin Booker together, do you have an issue with that?
Yeah, so same boat. I'm not playing a ton. I actually have 0 Devin Booker right now, just 10% Chris Paul. So I won't be playing them together. They're expensive enough that I'm not excited to play them together. If I'm hand building, I probably would not play them together unless I were doing a mini game building. You're doing Steph Curry on the other side, which is pretty tough with all the guard values. So, if you like your lineup with both of them, I think it's fine, but probably not something that I would hand build.
Yeah, if I was building a one lineup, they would not be in it together, which I assume is the case for the majority of questions we get. It's somebody building one lineup.
Right.
I don't have any lineups with the two of them together individually. I think they're both okay, not priorities, not going to be playing them together. Super chat here from Sean Sullivan. Then we'll talk about Christian Wood. Thoughts on Steph? So there's obvious upside in Steph. I'm not playing a bunch of him now. I'm not actually playing any of him now. Where I will end up playing Steph is if Giannis is ruled out and I need to make pivots off of Giannis. So for now, I don't have Steph. I will if Giannis gets ruled out. Is Curry somebody you're getting to?
I'm exact same boat. I'm not planning on playing any Curry, but yeah, he's probably one of the first pivots I'd go to if I have to make a pivot for Giannis.
So let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks now, because we got no Christian Wood. Christian Wood is somebody who didn't really play all that much last game. So if he was going to somehow end up starting, he would have mattered for me. But considering Christian Wood played 15 minutes last game, I don't really think this makes a massive difference for Dallas. Do you see it differently?
No, I'm with you. It doesn't make a massive difference. It gives a little bit of a bump to anybody who can score for Dallas. But it doesn't. He didn't play that many minutes. We weren't anticipating him to play that many minutes. We had him projected for 18 minutes. So we are distributing that elsewhere. We're also distributing some usage elsewhere, but it doesn't make anybody stand out like an absolute must play lot kind of play. It just gives a little bit of a boost to Tim Hardaway Jr., I would imagine, Jaden Hardy. Again, maybe Reggie Bullock gets a little bit of a boost, but I don't think anybody becomes like a huge priority as a result.
No, I don't think so either. And it's just a bunch of guys that would pick up, an extra extra fantasy point there. But, somebody like, even you want to say, Jaden Hardy or Tim Hardaway Jr. could have a little bit more usage. I mean, these are also guys that I'm already playing and already playing a good amount of them. So I don't really think this materially changed my lineups in any kind of massive way.
Yeah, I don't think it might either. I mean, I was going to say if we get, but he wasn't starting, so it doesn't probably change the starting lineup. Yeah, I don't think it changes anything for me.
You can make a case that Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell individually will both play more minutes, but I don't think that's enough for me to roster them with any kind of, like meaningful amount. Especially because Dwight Powell's center only, and he's likely going to stick as the starter.
Right. And yeah. I was going to say if they started JaVale McGee, that would make a difference, but I don't think they're changing the starting lineup here. So yeah, probably doesn't really massively affect anything.
Yeah. So for me, I like Jalen Hardy. I like Jaden Hardy. I like Tim Hardaway Jr., but I like those guys before. And I don't think I'm going to end up playing really any meaningful amount of Maxi Kleber or anything that matters when it comes to Dwight Powell.
Somebody in chat just asked me why no Isaiah Livers, and I just want to say he's just not a great fantasy producer, and his price tag is 5,300 now, which is probably about a ceiling for what Isaiah Livers' price tag could be. He could get there in this game just because it's a mess of a game, so maybe he scores more fantasy points per minute than usual. But we haven't projected for 34 minutes here, and we still only have him at 25 fantasy points at 5,300, which is just not good enough on this slate.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a whole bunch of players that are considerably cheaper than Isaiah Livers that are projected for considerably more fantasy points, which is always an issue in terms of somebody's individual viability. Right, got my lineups uploaded or updated. Now uploading them. That is good to go. Super chat here from Chilltown Sean. Just because. Appreciate all your insight and all your hard work. Thank you, Chi-Town Sean. We do appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. Another super chat from Chris Williams. It's your favorite Apple guy. You guys are the best. Super chatted every day for a week now and cashed thousands thanks to your amazing knowledge playing Suns Warrior Showdown. Who are your top 2 to 3 captains and cheapies? Sure. So convenient because I still have the lineups in front of me from when Jay left his super chat before. But my top captain ended up being Devin Booker when I ran lineups. Second most was Steph Curry. Then there was a pretty big drop-off. I got to Chris Paul the next most, but not nearly as much as I did of Paul and Curry. And then some cheapies to get to. Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie. If you're really looking to punt and go a little bit crazier, Ish Wainwright has been playing like 14 to 16 minutes in recent games at a 1K price tag for a single game showdown slate. That does make him viable. So Ish Wainwright, Josh Okogie, and Torrey Craig, I'll call as the cheapies for that contest. Now, some more super chats. This one from Connor Wasson. How do we handle Nas for cash games if no news? You're going to have flexibility to get to him. Like, don't lock up all of your forward and center spots right now. But we're presumably going to get news about Rudy Gobert soon. It's not going to be before lock, but that game starts 30 minutes after lock, and there's only one game that starts at 7. So you should have the flexibility to make any kind of swaps if and when that news comes out.
Yep. And Nas is both power forward and center eligible.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should just, I would save a little bit of flexibility there.
But I don't even think you don't have to go out of your way to do anything. Just build your lineups as is. Just the only thing I'll say is make sure that all of your power forward, center, forward utilities, but like make sure that isn't all taken up by the first game this late, which it shouldn't. You shouldn't have all those spots taken up. And then if we find out that Gobert is ruled out 20 minutes from now, you're going to have the flexibility to make swaps. And Neil and I will be covering that on the post-lock show. We're also going to be talking about no house advantage because we are locking in 4 minutes. And I don't think we're going to be getting the Rudy Gobert news before then. Let's see what else is in Discord, and we'll answer some of these questions for the next few minutes. And Iron Maiden 2, thoughts on a low-owned Tyus Jones tonight? Not a priority for me. There's a lot of good value, and I just think we finally have a fair price point on Tyus Jones. Did you get to Tyus Jones?
I don't believe so. Let me take a look. I
Okay.
got, let's see, Tyus Jones. Yeah, I have 0 shares of Tyus Jones. I think he's fine. The 7,300 price tag against this Dallas defense, like he's playable for sure. Not like a priority for me, but at 5% ownership, like I can see taking some shots there. Just not a priority, but somebody who I think you could sprinkle into some lineups. Miami
High Life, a potential bias in this question. You want any Heat players for tonight in DK GPP from Miami High Life? Not significantly. I don't have more than 10% exposure to any Heat players, but I have a lineup with Tyler here. I've got a couple with Bam Adebayo. Nothing significant though. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think I am in the same boat, but I just want to double check. Yeah, so I do have 14% of your sworn enemy, Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 5%, so one lineup of Tyler Harrow. I don't have any Bam right now. He's kind of interesting. 10% owned. I think Bam, I think those three are the three that I'm considering playing here. Nobody else that I really want. Nobody else on my radar for the Heat.
Next question is from Swaz. He wants to know thoughts on Jalen Smith. I love Jalen Smith as a pivot option. I think he's a really good leverage play off of Isaiah Jackson, and he's also really cheap. You could build lineups with both of them together. But Jalen Smith, for me in tournaments, a low-owned play, and I know that Neil had shouted him out earlier before as well, and I could get behind that for sure.
Yep, a lot of interest there.
Oh boy, I'm going to read this wrong. Casual elitist, Neesmith or Josh Green for last man. And Josh Green, I actually think that he's somebody who slight boost for him with Christian Wood out. Not anything super crazy high, but it did bring him into play for me a little bit more than it was before. And when I was running lineups, I got to a little bit more of Josh Green in the run post Christian Wood being out. So I like Josh Green more than Aaron Neesmith. Do you have a lean between those two?
Yep, same lean for me. You see that Petty Theft locked him into his 5 NBA Live final lineups?
I did not see that.
Yeah, thought that was interesting.
And he won a bunch of money with that.
And when Petty Theft does something like that, you got to think about, like, why is he?
You got to do the exact same thing.
Exactly.
You got to do the exact same thing 2 days later.
Yeah.
Big dream. Can I interest you in any Capella if Gobert is out? Probably not today. There's a lot of good center options.
Yeah, what is Capella's price tag? 6,200. I think Capella's playable. I throw him in that bucket, regardless of whether Gobert is in or out. I mean, Gobert, good defensively, but also, like, that doesn't always mean that he's shutting down the opposing center. So I think that Capella's in play either way. But yeah, I would like him better with Gobert out for sure.
Supac 007, Josh Okogie or Chris Duarte at small forward on FanDuel. That is Duarte for me. Yep. And then Lucky wants to know, are you doing a minute 1 or 2? Oh, am I doing a min 1 or 2 of the late games to wait for Giannis news? No, but I just got to a good amount of Giannis as I was making my lineups as is. So just playing Giannis. If he's ruled out, then I'll make some alterations. But it helps, like we said before, it helps that there's 2 games in the late spot. It's not like if you have Giannis and he gets ruled out, you're totally screwed. Not the case at all. So I was good with just building my lineups as if Giannis is playing, as if he's playing his normal minutes. If we find out something different an hour or 2 from now, I'll update my lineups. But as of right now, I'm good with Giannis being in, and I didn't set any kind of specific rules. Did you make any kind of specific rules to say Giannis has to be paired with another late game player or anything like that?
I have not made that rule. I do think that this is, as I said, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I think this is the kind of slate where I would consider doing it. Like, if you play Giannis, require at least one other player, and probably somebody who's not like Steph Curry, like require at least one of the like mid-range to cheap options from those 2 games, the Phoenix Golden State game and the Milwaukee Sacramento game. Just require one of those with Giannis. I think it makes some sense to. Like, if you're hand building, I would consider doing something like that, because then you can obviously, like, if Giannis is then ruled out, you can pivot down to, like, I think Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton will suddenly look pretty interesting if Giannis is ruled out in that matchup. So it is something that I would consider doing. Maybe I'll do that at some point, but so far I have not done it. It's kind of about your risk tolerance. Like, are you willing to risk having to pivot down from Giannis to Steph Curry and leave a lot of salary on the table, or do you want to just ensure that you're going to be able to make a 2v2?
Yeah. So, but once again, you know where I would have, if this was a slate where that was, let's say this game started at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, and there was no other games within an hour of that starting time, then I would have altered the rules. Just the fact there's multiple games later changed how I approached it.
Yep. Absolutely.
We got some starting lineups here. Nothing that's really earth-shattering. That starting lineup for the Mavericks. Hardy sticks in the starting lineup alongside Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, Bullock, and Powell. The Heat starting lineup, it's going to be Lowry coming off the bench. So Vincent, Hero, Butler, Love, and Bam Adebayo. Grizzlies starting lineup, same as usual for them. And then we've got the Utah Jazz starting THT, Agbaji, Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler with their big front court. We're at lock. How do you like the look of your lineups, Neil?
I've got a lot riding on Jaden Hardy, who I have in. I guess I could change that if I want to, but I've got 100% Jaden Hardy right now. I got down to 81% Killian Hayes, so that is locked in. 81% Chris Duarte is locked in, 62%. We'll see in 10 minutes how I feel about my lineups. It's going to change drastically because, as we know, as we've said, the first 2 minutes of the slate is the most important 2 minutes of the slate. So we'll know pretty quickly how we're doing.
And this should be a good one because the first game of the slate matters. It doesn't always matter.
Right.
Today, this was not one of the ones that we could, leave guys out of the lineup to give ourselves flexibility for later because we wanted to get some exposure to this absolute dog shit game because it matters for fantasy. For real life, doesn't matter? No, I don't even think the players care. I think the fantasy players care more than the actual players for that game. There's very few times that actually happens.
Yeah, they don't even have that many players who are like, vying for NBA positions in the future. I mean, a lot of old, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think players care. I'm with you.
Let's go and look at some of the early ownership to the games that have to the game that's just locked. I'm downloading the CSV, and then Jordan, also get ready to pull up some of the NHA stuff because we're going to build. Oh, Rudy Gobert's in, so all of that, and he's in anyway.
Okay.
So don't have to worry about Naz Reid. Rudy Gobert is in. Starting lineup for the Wolves: Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Anderson, Gobert. Did you play Rudy at all tonight?
I think I will now that he's in. I was playing for Rudy to be out. I'm going to have.
And by the way, Naz Reid is out.
Okay, so that makes Rudy more interesting too. Huh.
So all right, this was a wrinkle we didn't see coming.
Yeah.
So just to show you how dumb the NBA injury reports could be at certain, especially this point of the year. As of 4 minutes, as of a minute and a half ago, Rudy Gobert was questionable. Naz Reid was not on the injury report. And we were talking about how high of a priority could Naz Reid be? What do we do with Naz Reid if he ends up getting ruled as the starter, if Gobert is out? And now we've got the inverse. Naz Reid is not going to be playing. Gobert is in. Let's look at some of these games. When's the last time Naz Reid sat? Let me look at this. Naz Reid last sat January 4th. So let me pull this up and see what this did for some of the minutes in that game. So we ended up getting 30 minutes out of Kyle Anderson. And obviously some of this is going to be different because some of the pieces have changed via the trade deadline. 35 for Rudy Gobert. What's our current minutes projection on Gobert? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, so our latest is 31.6. I'm guessing that's going to pop up with Naz being out.
I am going to assume that also goes up a little bit with Naz Reid out. So I think Gobert does become a little bit more interesting with there being no Naz Reid. Something else also of note. Last game, Gobert played 42 minutes. And now Naz Reid is out.
Yeah, he's been playing some minutes.
I think we got a sneaky tournament play on our hands here, Neil.
I think we project him for 42 minutes. And see what happens.
Not going to go that high.
I don't mean that, by the way, people in chat.
I do think we should be playing him a little bit, though.
No, yeah, I think Gobert. Yeah, I agree. I was going to play Gobert even with Naz Reid in, and this just gives him a little bit more of a boost. So I do think he's very interesting.
I don't really think this. I mean, it doesn't change anybody else, and it doesn't make Gobert a lock or anything like that. He goes from somebody I didn't have exposure to somebody I'm going to be playing a little bit of. And I don't really think this changes anybody else from Minnesota.
Kyle Anderson, I think, feels a little bit safer. Maybe you get some power forward minutes. Yeah, I don't think it drastically changes anybody else.
Some people in chat asking about Luka Garza. Here's the issue with Garza. He has not played more than 20 minutes in competitive game the entire season, even with players being out. Times when Gobert's out, other players have been out. The most we've seen from Luka Garza, he played 23 minutes about a month ago, February 8th against Utah. But that was also a 30-point game. It was not competitive, and he played a bunch of garbage time. I find it unlikely that unless something happens with Rudy Gobert, that Garza is going to play very much. Now, if something happens to Rudy Gobert, sure, Garza goes out. He's going to probably have a good game in that kind of scenario, but I would not build lineups around that.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I mean, I think that it wouldn't be that shocking to see Luka Garza come in and get like 18 minutes. I think that would be like the max that you could expect outside of a blowout or an injury or something. And in 18 minutes, I mean, he's a very good fantasy producer, so maybe he'd be viable, but I don't think I'm going to any Luka Garza.
Yeah, and nobody else changed. Nasri doesn't play enough minutes to make any other bench guy to me massively appealing. Like you could see more minutes for Luka Garza. Maybe Taurean Prince picks up a couple extra minutes, but on a slate where we already have a good amount of value, I'm not going to go play Taurean Prince, Luka Garza, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, any of those guys. Are there any bench pieces that you were getting to from the Timberwolves?
Yeah, I'm not anticipating getting to any bench guys.
All right, we're on the same page there. I'm going to zero out Naz Reid. Not that it matters because I didn't have lineups with him before, but ready to rock off that. Let me double check Discord, make sure we didn't get any more super chats.
I do have to say, you're not wearing your glasses, Greg.
Oh, that's true.
Good promise.
That is true. It'll help me see. Now I have to find, right, here's the filter. Do they show up on the back of my head?
I don't even see them right now. Oh, maybe because okay. Now I see them on the back of your head. Yes. Yes, they were there. It was cool. It was very cool.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
I was hoping to turn around and be like the shades popped up, but if they're on the back of my head, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm sure I fucked up the framing and Jordan's mad at me now. I see him messing stuff on his computer.
Yeah, he's pissed. He was in such a good mood earlier too.
Super chat from Frankie Lofton here. DK, $40 single entry. Pick one, Curry and Butler, or ABC if he plays, and Tyus or Trey and Ant. Okay, so we got a lot of different permutations here.
All right, let me look.
A lot of different permutations.
Oh, you say this is in Discord?
No. It's
Frankie.
It's
okay, yeah, that's it. Curry and Butler.
I'm happy I put on my shades for this. The other thing also is because it's gotten darker outside, the lights in my office feel brighter, and this is going to help me to block out some of the lighting.
Perfect.
Curry and Butler, or ABC, so Giannis, and
Tyus,
or Trey.
Ooh, I love Trey and Ant there. Like I kind of want to go to the ABC and Tyus. That one, it comes down to either ABC and Tyus or Trey and Ant. I think I got to go with Trey and Ant. Both project really well, and they're playing against each other, so there's some positive correlation there. I think I got to go with that one.
So for me, yeah, I'm looking at my projections exposure. Trae Young and Anthony Edwards. Let's go. Neil's never biased when it comes to an Anthony Edwards question. I don't know if this is a subconscious thing, but whenever Neil is on the show, we get way more questions that are related to Anthony Edwards.
They just know that I'm the Ant whisperer, and how I whisper it is I just say play him every time.
Super
and
chat.
It's always right.
Super chat from Freshka saying no glasses. They're here. We got them. We're all
got
set.
That solved.
Glasses season. I also just some people laughing about Naz Reid being out. I was just making sure that as that happened, we didn't miss any super chats. I'm going to double check Discord. And then after that, we're going to go check out No House Advantage. And we're going to build out a parlay there. All right, good. We're all set there. So if you guys haven't signed up in NHA, one more time, you can sign up using the link below or using the promo code Greg. It's going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. And over there, you're going to find props you can play against the house. And something that Neil and I are going to be doing right now. We've got great projections over at Stokastic.com. If you guys want a free trial to NBA Bet Pro or Pick'em package, click the link below. 7 days totally for free. Also in NBA Bet Pro, we've got projections for not just NHA, Prize Picks. We've got Underdog. We've got DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Caesars, any sportsbook you could think of. We've got projections here. We've got all the props. We've got the projected odds on them going over or under, and then also the best projected EVs relative to those odds. If you're somebody who's into sports betting, this is a tool that's going to be invaluable for you. Sign up for the 7-day free trial, and then I think it is something that's going to end up paying for itself just based on the success that you're going to have with it. But let's look at these projections. What's standing out on NHA? I see Jordan's got it up here. Normally it's hard for me to see this, Neil, because the print is so tiny on the shared screen we have. But you know what helps? The glasses. I see why you're wearing them on shows now. They really do help see.
Yeah, that's the main reason that I wear glasses. Also, I look nerdier if I wear them.
The one problem with these particular glasses, they never sit straight on my face.
That's true. They're always shifting.
Yeah, they do move around a lot. They need to be tightened around the ear so they don't move as much. Let's see what looks good. So right away, here's something that stands out to me. One of our top, we haven't even updated yet for the Minnesota news. And as is Kyle Anderson, over 4.5 assists already looked good. Not that he's somebody that benefits massively, but he could pick up a few extra minutes in the absence of Naz Reid. Let's go with over 4.5 assists for Kyle Anderson, slow-mo himself.
You know something? Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I also want to say my cousin texted me today and was asking for the Noah's advantage where the projections are because they were not here this morning. We were having issues, but my cousin texted me and told me that he had signed up for a Stokastic subscription so he could access these Noah's advantage projections because he's won $800 in the past month using our tools on an HA.
Look at that. So
which doing people some good.
I don't know enough people know that Neil ended up winning a lot of money after signing up for a free trial over at Stokastic.
Yeah, for the on the DFS side, I can't sports bet here, but I can play Noah's advantage. Just getting into that now, but yeah, that was the first thing I when I because I was using a promo of some sort. I don't remember what it was, a 1-week promo or something. Won 6 figures and then signed up for the Stokastic tools and then continued to have a lot of success just using the tools.
And then won a Millie Maker.
And so the following year won a Millie Maker.
So a couple of things happened. Neil's career arc very much changed based on getting the free trial. Got a 6-figure win, got a Millionaire Maker one, and now got a whole career out of it. He gets to hang out with me a couple of times a week when Eric's too lazy to show up and do the show.
Yeah, exactly. It's worked out really well for me. You can make some money and then get a whole new job, whole new career. Quit being a lawyer.
So sign up for the sign up.
That was the
best
thing that came out of it. Yeah.
Sign up for the free trial. That's the news we've here. By the way, are you ready for some bad news?
Oh God. Isaiah Jackson, 2 fouls. I saw it in chat. Is that the bad news you're going to give me?
That is the bad news. This, by the way, is not the worst chalk start to an Isaiah Jackson game ever. Last year, there was a slate where Isaiah Jackson was 70% owned. He rolled his ankle on the first play of the game and wasn't able to return. He played 14 seconds at like 70% ownership.
He also has negative half fantasy point.
Yeah, one of the fouls was an offensive one.
I'm glad that I played a good amount of Jalen Smith. So I set that rule at most one of Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith. So now those 7 Jalen Smith lineups that I have look better.
By the way, Isaiah Jackson, it appears he picked up a 3rd foul according to chat.
No.
That's what the streets are saying. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. It's what the people are saying in the streets, though.
Got to keep your ear to that grindstone. Is that the nose to the grindstone, ear to the? I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Just trying to come up with a phrase here.
There's many ways to skin a cat.
That's what I was going for. Yeah.
That's a weird phrase, is it not?
That is a very. I've thought about that several times. How weird that phrase is.
I want to know who the guy is who is like, listen, we all know this. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and then he just has the list in front of him. He's like knife, cheese grater. Like how many ways could there possibly be?
Yeah, there's many, Greg.
Either way, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's some people in chat. Hugo Echeverry saying that he remembers that bullshit. Yeah, I remember not only that, but it was because we do say that the slate is decided in the first 2 minutes of the game. Very rare does that actually hold true. It did on that night, though. Isaiah Jackson, massively popular, rolled his ankle immediately and wasn't able to return to the game.
Brutal.
Some early results from this game. By the way, Isaiah Jackson has not come off the court. He also hasn't scored any fantasy points. Not positive fantasy points anyway.
Yeah.
But we've got Aaron Nesmith off to a hot start, 5 points, 2 boards. Nobody else really doing anything for Indiana. For the Detroit Pistons, Killian Hayes, 6 points, a rebound, and an assist. Hot start for him. Wiseman up to 2 points, 3 boards, and 2 blocks for James Wiseman. Good start
an offensive foul. Hopefully that's his first.
And we've got a super chat here, or not we do have a super chat from Chad Freeland. Hardaway and Horford or Kyle Anderson and Jabari Smith Jr. on DK. That is Hardaway and Horford for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm playing any Horford, but I think that's probably my pick as well. Let's see.
Obi-Wan wants to know, can you milk a cat? I don't do it in my free time, but
You can nip anything with nipples.
Yeah, that is true. Can't milk me.
Can you milk me, Greg? You know the reference, right?
Yeah. It's what Eric and I talk about on our post-lock show.
Of course, that's what I was referring to. That's the reference there.
And let's double check the Discord, and then we'll finish building out our NHA prop there. All right, we're all set there. So we started off, we got Kyle Anderson over 4.5 assists. I think that's a really good option to kick us off, considering that Naz Reid was ruled out. And then once again, this was something that already projected well for us even before. Looking at our projections for no house advantage, are there any against the house props that are catching your eye?
All right, let me just refresh real quick, make sure that I'm up to date with these. Yeah, let's see here.
I see a few that look good.
I mean, we talked about that Kyle Anderson one. I'm still with you on that one. Love that one. Domantas Sabonis, 18.5 points. I kind of like that one because it's going to look even better if Giannis is ultimately ruled out. We've currently got him projected for 19.6 points.
Okay.
I think the matchup gets easier for Domantas if Giannis is out there. So 18.5 being the line for Domantas Sabonis. We have that one winning 54% of the time. And again, I think it gets even better if Giannis is not in the game. So yeah, I kind of like that over 18.5 points for Sabonis here.
Let's see. There are a lot of good options here. Lots of different ways to skin a cat.
A lot of ways to skin a cat.
Lots of ways.
And to milk a cat, to be honest.
I am going to go with, we're talking about how bad he's been as a fantasy producer before. Agbaji is an over-under of 10.5 points. We've got him projected for around 9. It's a really down-paced matchup for the Utah Jazz going up against the Miami Heat. Agbaji on the wing probably is going to see Jimmy Butler points during the game. A projection likes the under. Give me the under on a guy who we were just, I wouldn't say singing the praises of, but making fun of a little bit for being as shitty as he is as a fantasy producer. Give me the Agbaji under. So we are now at how many? We did 3 picks, right, Jordan? Yeah, 3 picks. So if you get to 4, it's 11x. Better odds than you're going to find anywhere else. And if you get to 5, it is 21x.
I don't want to take it. This DeJounte Murray over 1.5 3-pointers against the Timberwolves. I think it's a good bet, though. I think that there's a pretty good chance that DeJounte Murray hits more than 2 3-pointers against the Timberwolves. Pace-up matchup. They're not great defensively. Kind of like that over on 1.5 threes for DeJounte.
Get behind it. Our projections like it. I gotta find a good one to close this with, though, because we're coming for that 21x. We're coming for it, and we're coming hard, Neil.
We're coming hard.
Yes, sir. Sometimes this show, I don't think would read very well in text. Tim Hardaway Jr. over 4.5 rebounds.
Yeah, no Christian Wood. Have to imagine that gives everybody else a little bit of a rebound bump.
The crucifix. Yeah, so no Christian Wood. Tim Hardaway Jr., 4.5 rebounds. It's a fairly low prop, but there's also opportunity for Hardaway to just be playing lineups that are smaller on the court, because the other play, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, Christian Wood, of those players, Wood is the best rebounder. It does create a little bit more rebounding opportunities. We already like the over here as well, but give me Timmy for over 4.5 rebounds. We got a 21x parlay built here, Neil.
I like it. Yeah, I think we should run with that one.
All right. Let's do it.
Interesting side note, just because we were talking about it, Luka Garza. So we do have Luka Garza now projected for 18.4 fantasy points. So he does become arguably fantasy relevant. Obviously, there's upside on top of that.
It's still tough with him being.
I know, with so much. Yeah, exactly. We've got so much other good value that still not somebody I'm going to play, but becomes like on a different slate. I think he would be playable.
How many ways could there really be to skin a cat?
You already mentioned several, but cheese grater. You could use a knife, maybe scissors. I don't know. I don't want to think about it anymore, to be honest.
All right, here we go. The 6 ways to skin a cat. The old-fashioned. This is the classic. You cut along the feet of the cat just enough to separate the skin from the body. All right, that's horrific. The newfangled. Boy, I don't like this at all.
This isn't a fun game, Greg.
No, and this appears to be serious. Oh, no, it's not. Let nature take care of it. You just take it out in a hurricane and it blows it all off.
That's funny.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look up what the origin of the skin. If anybody in chat knows what the origin is of how to skin a cat, then I think you guys. I just want to know if anybody has that information. Throw it into chat. Charles Moran, FanDuel, GPP, Okogie, Green, or Hardy, and the last man in ABC and Paul, or Sabonis and Curry. So of Okogie, Green, and Hardy, my favorite option is Hardy. I get the most exposure to him. And the last two in, it is Chris Paul and Giannis, or Sabonis and Curry. I'm going to go with Giannis and Paul. And then easy one to swap if Giannis isn't ruled out. These guys are all players that are starting in the last game.
Yeah, I like that. I'm with you on that one.
Rush says, I don't think it has to do with domesticated cats. I would hope not. Fargo guy says, tigers. An author in the 1800s referred to it as different ways to make money, but it seems she meant it as intended. Yeah, it does seem to. So Dominic Brown says, what are you guys talking about? It's a phrase. There's many ways to skin a cat. It means there's multiple ways to get the job done. But why is that the analogy? That's the thing I've never understood.
It's a weird phrase.
And who is John Galt 420? Greg not going to like me if I ever get a chance to meet him face-to-face convo with him. Okay.
What does that mean?
I don't know. He's upset about something. I'm not the one who invented the phrase, by the way. That was somebody else's doing. Let's see. Anything going on in Discord? Not at the moment, but we do have some other results from the basketball game. By the way, Isaiah Jackson never came out of the game. He just stayed out there with his fouls.
Wow. Okay.
So 2 fouls for him. He does have 3 points. No other stats right now. And nobody else has done anything since we last checked on the Pacers. And from the Pistons, my betrothed, Rodney Magruder. He's hit a couple of threes in a row here. He's up to 6 points. Killian Hayes, 6 points, a rebound, 5 assists, and a steal. Amarui chalk, 5 points, 2 rebounds, and a steal. Before, we were telling people that we're playing the chalk Killian Hayes, but we knew that this could potentially backfire. What is your level of confidence in us playing chalk Killian Hayes now?
I mean, it's looking a lot better since he's started off well. I'm happy that I played over the field Killian Hayes. I didn't play 100%, so I cut back to 81% Killian Hayes. I'm happy with that exposure right now.
Yeah, I am as well. By the way, I think you're misunderstanding. Who is Johnson Galt 420? How the fuck can you talk about this shit like it's funny? It's a phrase. And I don't know why it's a phrase. I'm not the one who made it up. You've heard it before though, right, Neil?
Oh yeah.
This is a very common phrase. It's a common phrase in vernacular.
Yeah, we're just talking about how weird the phrase is.
Yeah. In News God, you don't have to delete him. I'm just trying to explain to him here. Is there really that many people who've never heard it before? Apparently. Huh. 21-16, the Pistons are up now. And the funny thing is, Isaiah Jackson is just going to get his regular run and apparently not do anything with it.
Yeah, it kills. Now I'm wishing I didn't have that rule, because now it just means Isaiah Jackson going to play all the minutes and do nothing. And then Jalen Smith going to not play and do nothing.
Daniel Terry, don't tell him about killing 2 birds with 1 stone. That's another one too, though. Like, when did multitasking become killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Another one. Who's the person that's killing multiple birds with 1 stone?
I mean, like hunters, I guess that one makes a little bit more sense to me. Like, there are probably times when you want to kill multiple birds, but yeah.
Not birds, squirrels for me, though, because I had them infested in my attic not too long ago.
Ooh.
It's very expensive to remove squirrels, I found out.
I bet.
Very expensive. All right. Let's do one more wrap up here, and I'm going to refresh the projections we have for the site. Was there anything else, Neil, that stood out to you from our NHA projections? Any other props you think people might want to consider playing? If not, that is okay. But just wondering if there's any that we did not talk about that stand out to you in our projections.
Yeah, we didn't have any others that I really loved that I think we need to talk about.
The other thing, too, about killing 2 birds with 1 stone, It's a stone. How efficient do you need to be with it? It's not valuable.
Right.
What are you saving
Just use
stones
a couple
for?
stones. Yeah, that's
You
true.
just pick them up off the ground.
But it looks cool. If you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, like that obviously looks cooler than just killing 1 bird with that stone.
I gotta say, if I saw somebody throw a stone in the air and take a bird out of midair, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. I don't need him to kill 2.
Wouldn't you think it was that much cooler though if they took out 2 birds with that 1 stone? I mean, Randy Johnson, we saw him take out a bird with a fastball. What if he had taken out 2 birds with that fastball?
Then I just started thinking his issues.
What if it's just 1 throw though? I mean, that's cool.
But you're practicing too much if you could confidently kill multiple birds with 1 stone.
That's a good point.
I question anybody who says they know how they could do that. By the way, Olrat 14, Hate Basketball waited for Reed. Amarui lost, but you didn't have, like, you could have played Amarui and still played Naz Reid as well. It didn't have to be one or the other.
True. But if you want to play Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, I guess Jalen Smith power forward eligible. Oh yeah, so is Naz Reid. So yeah, you could have played both. But I am guessing that my Naz Reid interest and exposure did cut back on my Omayuri. So I'm with him a little bit.
By the way, it's funny sometimes how things work in the first couple minutes. Like Aaron Nesmith had 5 points and 2 rebounds, like 2 minutes into the first quarter. He still has 5 points and 2 rebounds. Isaiah Jackson picked up those fouls really early, never came out of the game, just sucked on his own accord. Killian Hayes absolutely smashing. And Amarui, 7 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal now for Amarui. So really big start for him. Is there anything else you want to bring up here, Neil? We're at the end of our run. Any further notes for the people before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll just say once again, love Giannis if he plays. If Giannis doesn't play, then I'm going to have interest in Middleton and Drew Holiday. I think they both will be interesting plays that not many people get to. So that's kind of one situation to monitor.
All right. So that is going to do. Oh, never mind. Sorry. We got some super chats here. Mikey B, more time to skin cats if you only use 1 stone. This is true. And then Avi Schreier, weren't there 2 birds with Randy Johnson? Nope, just the 1. All right. So we got those very important super chats answered. Now we can end up leaving the show. If you guys didn't do it yet, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck tonight. I'm going to be back here tomorrow.